Chapter 2231. Who could compare to such a brilliant battle record? He hadn't reached the Tao validation realm yet he had done something that ordinary experts at the Tao validation realm couldn't do. In this battle, as a demigod, he had consecutively killed 2 deities. With such strength and such a battle record, he could definitely be said to be famous in history. No one could ignore such an existence. Since ancient times, such examples hadn't been seen many times. Furthermore, this had been said by the Abyssal Demon Master and the Divine Union Leader themselves, which added some credibility. Prideful beings like them disdained lying about such matters, as there was simply no need to do so. The entire ancient wilderness wasn't calm. Everyone realized that it was only a matter of time before Yi Shiwen reached the Tao validation realm. Nobody doubted whether Yi Shiwen could reach the Tao validation realm anymore. This didn't need to be said. It was nothing more than when he would reach the Tao validation realm, how he would reach the Tao validation realm, and where he would do it. Similarly, everyone realized that their cultivation path wasn't wrong. Yi Shiwen's existence told them that they weren't wrong. Their path was feasible. Even though countless years had passed, this path to immortality was still the correct one. The entire ancient wilderness had surrendered to Yi Shiwen. Nobody could resist a deity. Furthermore, this was an era where deities had withered and no one had reached the Tao validation realm. Although Yi Shiwen hadn't reached the Tao validation realm yet, he seemed to have reached the Tao validation realm. This was the most crucial point. In everyone's opinion, what was the difference between him and those legendary deities that had reached the Tao validation realm? Under such circumstances, it couldn't be any easier for the human race to recover their lost territories. Yi Shiwen didn't even need to do anything. His subordinates would be able to handle these matters in an orderly manner. After witnessing Yi Shiwen slaughter 2 deity-level experts with their own eyes, these people completely surrendered to him, even if they had some ulterior motives. Nobody could contend against such an expert. Even though they were only half a step away from reaching the Tao validation realm, it was impossible for them to reach the Tao validation realm unless they had a fortuitous encounter. This was the difference between heaven and earth. Yi Shiwen reaching the Tao validation realm was only a matter of time. In front of such a great person, they did not dare to show the slightest disrespect. While Yi Shiwen was staying in the ancient wilderness, the top experts of various clans, as well as the hidden old monsters, also came to visit him one after another. Even some ancient creatures in the forbidden area that Yi Shiwen had originally wanted to exterminate but couldn't. Although they were tyrannical and had extraordinary bloodlines, they were still mortal beings. Yi Shiwen was already comparable to the existence of Tao confirmation, no matter what. So, they couldn't help but respect him. Although they claimed to be able to survive the era of the rise of the kings and had means to deal with the gods, it was mainly because the kings didn't have much interest in them at that time. They were too lazy to deal with them. However, Yi Shiwen was different. Yi Shiwen had already put out the idea and style of wanting to flatten the forbidden area a long time ago. They couldn't help but tremble with fear. They could only come to visit him one by one. It didn't matter how arrogant they were. However, even a dragon would have to coil up and a tiger would have to lie down in front of Yi Shiwen. If they didn't come out, Yi Shiwen wouldn't have known. As soon as he came out, he couldn't help but be shocked. In the ancient wilderness forbidden area, there were actually wild beasts of the myth realm. There were even many at the peak of the myth realm. It was rumored that they had witnessed the era of the rise of the kings. Now, it seemed that the rumors were not false. These wild beasts originally had extremely long lifespans. Coupled with some special means, they had survived from ancient times until now. Yi Shiwen thought about it. He was too naive in the past. He wanted to flatten these forbidden areas when he was only in the mysterious realm. These wild beasts had lived for so many years, and many of them had extraordinary bloodlines. They were born with martial arts inheritance. The ancient wilderness was not inferior to other worlds. After such a long time, It was normal for a few myths to appear. However, the hundreds of mythical creatures still gave him a fright. It was no wonder that many foreign forces did not dare to act recklessly even though they were eyeing the ancient wilderness covetously. Even if there were abyssal demon masters among them. These wild beasts of the myth realm, and some old monsters who had survived through means were naturally a great threat to the ancient wilderness. However, they were also a great deterrent to foreign forces. It could be said that there were both advantages and disadvantages. At this time, Yi Shiwen only knew that these wild beasts had lived through the era of the kings. It was because the kings of the various races had agreed to guard their own land and not come out to cause trouble. That was why they were allowed to survive in the ancient wilderness. Yi Shiwen's thoughts were completely different from before. Now, he could somewhat understand what the kings were thinking. They did not care about these wild beasts at all. As long as he was here, he would kill whoever dared to cause trouble. He did not want to anger the heavens and the people. Speaking of which, they were the true natives of the ancient wilderness. They were older than the 100 Races Alliance and the Demon Race. However, although he did not want to argue with them, it did not mean that Yi Shiwen could let go of the forbidden areas that had taken advantage of the situation. He gathered all the powerful beings in the forbidden areas who had come to pay their respects. Then, he found all the wild beasts that had caused trouble in the forbidden areas and killed them one by one in front of everyone. There were a few legends and many profound realm experts. In one breath, he had flattened more than 20 forbidden areas, big and small. These wild beasts wanted to resist, but in front of Yi Shiwen, they were like children. They could not do anything. Their resistance made them look even more ridiculous. The other desolate beasts trembled. Their mountain-like bodies prostrated themselves in front of Yi Shiwen. They did not even dare to breathe loudly. How could these old monsters that had lived for countless years not know that Yi Shiwen was killing the chicken to warn the monkeys? He was killing the chicken to warn the monkeys. At the same time, they breathed a sigh of relief. Yi Shiwen was willing to kill the chicken to warn the monkeys, which meant that he had no intention of killing all of them. This was the best result. As the saying goes, it is better to let others die than to let others die. Back then, they had strictly abided by the agreement with the kings of the human race, and did not take action. Now that they had escaped from this disaster, they could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. They would not dare to do it again in the future. Who would have thought that the human race would actually produce such a person in such a decline? One person could prosper a city, and one person could destroy a country. Yi Shiwen was a person with such ability. It seemed that it was not without reason that the human race could become one of the few great races in the universe. Even in a place far away from the center, such a person could be produced. They had also paid attention to that battle, so they knew that it did not matter whether Yi Shiwen was a god or not. Even if he was not a god, he would still be a god if he could defeat a god. Moreover, it seemed that Tao validation was just around the corner. They were going to witness the rise of another king. They guessed right. Yi Shiwen was indeed killing the chicken to warn the monkeys. Unless he intended to kill all of these people, it was imperative. He did not want to go to the extreme. He was decisive in his actions. He would never hesitate to kill those who deserved to be killed. However, he was not a crazy person who wanted to kill the whole world. However, he did not want to let go of these forbidden areas that had committed crimes when the human race was in trouble. Since there was an agreement, they would have to pay the price if they did not abide by it. After dealing with the wild beasts in these forbidden areas, the rest were the representatives of the various races. They did not dare to neglect the worship of Yi Shiwen. Although they were representatives, they were by far the strongest experts of each race. Everyone who was ranked high in the race had come. Whether it was due to the pressure of reality or the curiosity in their hearts, it was imperative to worship the god at that time. At the same time, they were also a little nervous. They did not know how Yi Shiwen would deal with the relationship between the human race and the other races. After learning that Yi Shiwen had won, the experts of the various races basically fled back to their own races. They did not dare to take back the human land that they had originally occupied. What a joke! If Yi Shiwen was dissatisfied, he could kill them on the spot. In this regard, Yi Shiwen did not go to the extreme. He only asked each of the three races to hand over 1/10 of the territory as compensation for the evil they had done over the years. The various races could not help but sigh in relief. Although it was painful, it was better than being exterminated by Yi Shiwen. In fact, Yi Shiwen did not care much about these territories. The ancient barons was not worse than the Xian world. In fact, its foundation was even better. However, why was it difficult to produce legendary experts in the ancient barons, but the Xian world had many legendary experts? In the past, the ancient barons had been extremely glorious twice. Similarly, there were many races. This showed that the key problem was not the issue of these territories. In terms of inheritance, as long as enough inheritance was unearthed, and with the guidance of the seniors, coupled with the many experts that Yi Shiwen had left here, the revival of the human race was only a matter of time. As for the other races, he was not interested in them. The fact that he did not kill them all showed that his mentality had changed after his transformation. There were also many problems within the human race. The interests of the various clans and sects were coordinated and so on. Because of Yi Shiwen's existence, the Yi clan had naturally risen to become the fifth great royal clan. Moreover, with Yi Shiwen's power and influence, they had faintly become the first royal clan in the world. In this regard, Yi Shiwen had asked them to be as low-key as possible. Titles and so on were all fake. Only one's own strength was the foundation of a foothold. Of course, he had also left many exclusive martial arts and martial arts insights to the Yi clan. He was a member of the Yi clan. So, it was reasonable for him to favor the Yi clan. In the past, his development could not have been done without the Yi clan's help. Now was the time to repay them. Chapter 2232. The major forces tried their best to cultivate talents in the hope that they would be rewarded in the future. However, it was rare to see such an exaggerated rate of return like Yi Shiwen. At the level of Dao confirmation, it was not a matter of how much resources were invested. It was normal for all the rewards to go down the drain. Yi Shiwen did not have much time left. He could only leave his insights in the Yi family as much as possible to forge the foundation of the Yi family. He could not stay in ancient barons like the other seniors, so he did not have that much time to slowly lay the foundation of the Yi family. He could only choose to keep moving forward. Before that, he had to make the Yi family as strong as possible. However, this had to be done slowly. It would still take a long time. There was not much time left for him. At most, he would return to deity transformation abyss in a month. However, he did not have that much time. He still had to deal with a lot of trivial matters in one go. He also had to find time to meet the higher-ups of the major clans. Therefore, he did not have much time to do things. A month passed quickly. There were many things that could not be done perfectly. This was something that could not be helped. He could only choose to return in the future to deal with it. After a month, Yi Shiwen had quietly left ancient barons. Except for Yi Fan and a few others, no one knew that Yi Shiwen had left. However, it did not matter. In fact, most of the matters could be handled by the experts of the myth. There was no need to trouble Yi Shiwen at all. However, although Yi Shiwen hurried, he was still late when he returned to deity transformation abyss. He was more than 10 days late than the 3 months that Elder Kong said. He had not returned for a long time. He had to properly arrange things in ancient barons, so he was still a bit late. When he returned, everyone had already left. If you came back any later, you would not be able to make it, Boss Su said with a straight face. Yi Shiwen smiled brightly. No matter what the reason was, he was still late in the end. You have made a lot of progress in these 3 months. Elder Kong looked at Yi Shiwen with some surprise. He did not know what kind of adventure Yi Shiwen had. In these 3 months he could actually have such amazing progress. However, he still felt a little strange. What was it that made him return in such a hurry within 3 months? Is there something urgent? Yi Shiwen asked. Elder Kong nodded and said, "This is also a great fortune for you. This opportunity only appears once every 100,000 years, and it has fallen on your head." 100,000 years? Yi Shiwen was somewhat stunned. 100,000 years wasn't a short period of time. One must know that a human's lifespan would be no more than 10,000 years if they hadn't reached the Tao realm. Well, in fact, this can't be considered as an opportunity. It should be said that all the major forces have joined forces to create this opportunity. Before the Tool Emperor disappeared, he had left behind a treasure vault in the Tool Emperor Heaven. We can't enter the Tool Emperor Heaven, so we can only take advantage of the fact that there's no one presiding over the Tool Emperor Heaven every 100,000 years. So we can only open a passage when the barrier of the Tool Emperor Heaven is weak. But even so, only those who haven't reached the Tao realm can enter. Yi Shiwen was startled. He remembered that a long, long time ago, Yi Mo had once imparted him the Celestial Emperor's tool refining technique. Yi Mo had refused to tell him anything at first. Later on, he had inadvertently mentioned that this Celestial Emperor's tool refining technique had originated from a Supreme Emperor, the Tool Emperor. Could it be him? But at that time, he just listened to it and didn't take it too seriously. At that time, the Emperor level was too far away for him who had just entered the Truth Realm. They were not on the same level at all. Seeing Yi Shiwen's expression, Elder Kong thought that Yi Shiwen didn't know, so he continued, "Among the known emperors, the Tool Emperor was the only one who obtained the Tao through tool refining. Even the other emperors have heard of the Tool Emperor's tool refining technique. Even the other emperors have heard of the Tool Emperor's tool refining technique. If any of the Tool Emperor's tool refining technique were to circulate, countless people would go crazy over it. However, the Tool Emperor disappeared many years ago, leaving only the Tool Emperor Heaven in the depths of the void. The Tool Emperor Heaven is the divine kingdom of the Tool Emperor. The entire Tool Emperor Heaven itself is forged from countless tools and heavenly treasures. In the depths of the Tool Emperor Heaven, there's a huge treasure vault. Every 100,000 years, it spits out many heavenly treasures, tools, and divine objects. These things will be integrated into the depths of the Tool Emperor Heaven, making it even more stable. Therefore, even if there's no one presiding over the Tool Emperor Heaven, there's no way for Tao Realm experts to enter." Elder Kong narrowed his eyes as he looked at Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen nodded solemnly. This was indeed a great fortune, a great fortune. However, these are not the most important things. The most important thing is that the Tool Emperor Heaven has left behind the inheritance of the Tool Emperor. It's just that after all these years, no one has truly found the inheritance of the Tool Emperor. Many people think that it's nonsense, but we know that it's not nonsense. Your main purpose in entering the Tool Emperor Heaven is to find the inheritance of the Tool Emperor. If you have the opportunity to obtain the inheritance of the Tool Emperor, then the entire Tool Emperor Heaven will be yours. Your future achievements will be limitless. Do you understand? You only have one chance. You don't have the lifespan to wait until the next time the Tool Emperor Heaven opens. If you don't achieve Tao Realm, then you'll die." Elder Kong looked at Yi Shiwen and said with a piercing gaze, "Of course, if you obtain any divine objects or tools that you don't need, the deity transformation abyss will purchase them at a high price. We won't let you suffer a loss." And Yi Shiwen nodded. This wasn't a problem. In any case, he wasn't being forced. Whether he needed it or not was up to him. Besides us, will there be others who will enter the deity transformation abyss? Yi Shiwen asked. Of course. In addition to the deity transformation abyss, there are hundreds of other big and small forces who will send their most outstanding disciples. In the deity transformation abyss, only the top 10 are qualified to enter. The others will only be sending themselves to death. In the deity transformation abyss, there are not only countless treasured tools, but more importantly, the Tool Emperor has left behind countless mechanisms and arrays. Many of the Tool Emperor's subordinates are also in deep slumber. Even if it's a deity, they won't be able to walk safely in there. Although your strength is not bad, in fact, it's only equivalent to the early stage of the immortality realm. It's not enough for you to roam freely. Moreover, the elite seeds of the major forces are also eyeing you covetously. It's impossible for you to obtain the inheritance easily. The early stage of the immortality realm. Yi Shiwen wasn't unfamiliar with this. Although he hadn't proven his Tao, Yi Shiwen had browsed through the insights and personal letters of several great kings in the imperial court of the human race. It mentioned that after proving one's Tao, one would be seen as a deity by ordinary people. However, among the deities there were also several stages. The immortality realm, the eternal realm, the sage realm, and the king realm. Each stage was further divided into the early stage, the middle stage, the late stage, and the peak stage. Above that was the legendary emperor realm. It was not a stage that he could reach now. The 4 human kings of the human race were the powerhouses among the king realm. The immortality realm was the first stage of proving one's Tao. It could be described as having no disasters and living forever with the world. It meant that as long as they didn't suffer from serious injuries or irresistible natural disasters, the masters of this realm could live forever and never die. However, if they suffered a serious injury, they could still die. Most of the deities that were known to have fallen were at the level of the immortality realm. The eternal realm was a step further. Even if there was only one cell left, they could be reborn. Immortality was no longer a characteristic. Eternal immortality was their strongest reliance. Therefore, when one cultivated to the eternal realm, it was basically very difficult to kill them. The sage realm had undergone earth-shattering changes. They were more powerful and harder to kill. The king realm powerhouses were the kings of the gods. They were existences at the god-king level. An existence of such a level was enough to shock the world. This was especially so during the era of the rise of the kings. There were not many Tao validation powerhouses in the human race. There were only 4 of them. The other clans had produced many powerhouses. However, in front of the 4 human kings, even a dragon would have to coil up and a tiger would have to lie down. This was the reason. One of them was comparable to a dozen or even dozens of deities. However, that was still too far away for him. After proving one's Tao, every step forward would be much more difficult than before. The time needed was usually calculated in units of thousands or even tens of thousands of years. However, it didn't matter if the deities were immortal. It would just take a longer time. Right now, Yi Shiwen was only at the peak of the early eternal realm. He was confident that he didn't need to be afraid of anyone in this realm. Even if the Abyssal Demon Master and the Divine Union Leader joined forces, they would still be defeated by him. They wouldn't be a threat to him at all. This time, you'll be in great danger when you go to the Weapon Emperor Heaven. Don't think that you're already invincible. In fact, there are top-notch existences among the major forces who can compete with Tao validation before they reach the Weapon Emperor Heaven. Moreover, the Weapon Emperor Heaven only opens once every 100,000 years. The major forces nurture their elites at all costs. Our transformation abyss is no exception. Do you know how much we paid to open the Divine Transformation Tower for you for a year? Originally, the best candidate wasn't you. The Lord of Flames chose you. However, it seems that you didn't disappoint him. You're indeed a good candidate. Elder Kong said. Apart from the elites of the major forces, many old monsters who have lived for countless years will also take this opportunity to go. There are many who have lived for tens of thousands of years. Some of them also have special encounters that allow them to compete with the deities. You must remember not to take it lightly. Chapter 2233. Yi Shiwen nodded solemnly. Of course, he wasn't that arrogant. He only felt that he was the only one in the world who could reach this level. In fact, the lifespan of humans was too short. But compared to humans, many long-lived races had innate advantages. Some powerful fortuitous encounters could make their actual combat power far beyond the ordinary realm. Perhaps they were extraordinary geniuses in the past, but they were trapped in this realm for countless years. Tao proving was something that couldn't be explained with words. It didn't mean that the more powerful one was in the early stages, the more one would be able to prove one's Tao. Some people advanced by leaps and bounds in the early stages, and then there was no then. Some people might spend 100,000 years to reach the peak of the mythical realm, but in the end they could prove their Tao. Fate was something that was hard to say. But he wouldn't belittle himself. With his current cultivation, he had the strength to prove his Tao. Naturally, ordinary people couldn't compare to him. Not being arrogant or belittling oneself, this was true confidence. But compared to this, you'd better refine the energy in your body as soon as possible. Otherwise, you'll be harmed. Elder Kong glanced at Yi Shiwen and saw the huge energy sealed in Yi Shiwen's body. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, I wanted to refine it, but didn't I rush back? Of course, he was just saying it. This was a once-in-100,000 years opportunity. It was indeed a great fortune. But even though you don't have the time now, you will have it in the future. The Tool Emperor Heaven will be open for a total of 10 years. With our ability we can only maintain it for about 10 years. After that, the passage will close. If you don't come out before that, you'll be trapped inside. Do you understand? Elder Kong said. I don't want to see you again after 100,000 years. But from his words, he was very confident about Yi Shiwen's Tao proving. For others, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. For him, it was just a threshold that needed to be crossed. I understand. Yi Shiwen nodded. 10 years, only 10 years. But could it be that the previous seniors didn't leave behind any notes, maps, or the like? Regarding the weapon Sovereign Heaven, he was completely clueless and instead felt somewhat depressed. 100,000 years have passed. Do you still hope for the weapon Emperor Heaven to remain the same? Even if you have a map and diary, they have long since lost their value as a reference. If you rely on such things, it will instead be easy for you to encounter trouble in the future. That is because there are innumerable and unimaginably dangerous existences in Weapon Emperor Heaven. However, if you are a bit more careful and don't rely on maps and diary, you will instead be able to go further. Do you understand? Said Elder Gu. Yi Shiwen thought about it and no longer entangled himself in this issue. Ancient Weapon City was an incomparably ancient city, situated at the edge of the Weapon Emperor Heaven in the depths of the void. As an ancient city with countless years of history, the walls of Ancient Weapon City were marked with the marks of time, allowing one to easily see the history of this ancient city. Back when the Weapon Emperor was still around and the Weapon Emperor Heaven was not sealed, there were many ancient cities like this around the Weapon Emperor Heaven. However, as time passed, some of them were reduced to gravel in the river of time, and some were destroyed in the flames of war. Only Ancient Weapon City was left. This large city could accommodate tens of millions of people. Now, including the permanent residents, there were only less than 1 million, and most of them were people who came to make a fortune. This was once the periphery of the incomparably glorious Weapon Emperor Heaven, and there were many lost magic tools and cultivation techniques that could make people rich overnight. Although it was not as good as before, from time to time, there were still rumors of people accidentally obtaining ancient magic tools and becoming rich overnight. Because of this, many people were attracted to settle down. However, this city floating in the void of the universe was ultimately not suitable for ordinary people to live in. Therefore, those who could live in it were all extraordinary existences. Especially when the weapon Emperor Heaven opened once every 100,000 years, it was a boiling cauldron of voices. Countless experts came, adding to the prosperity of the city. The last time the weapon Emperor Heaven had opened was 100,000 years ago. It was so long ago that most of the residents only knew about this grand occasion from legend. Countless experts flooded in, making the entire ancient weapon city even harder to manage. These unruly geniuses and old monsters constantly clashed with each other. There were also many conflicts between them and the native. However, it could still be considered as an exceptionally grand occasion. Yi Shiwen walked in the ancient weapon city, and the sounds of hawking could be heard all around. Everywhere he went, he could see profound realm experts, and even myth experts could be seen shuttling back and forth. Here, there was no longer a high and mighty status, and there was not much difference between them and ordinary experts. He had concealed his aura, and looked like an ordinary 7th-level Pawang realm expert, that's all. In this place, it was all too common. This time, those who came to try their luck were far from just those peak myth experts. In fact, there were many experts who had passed the 7th level of Pawang realm, and even some peerless geniuses who had yet to reach the 7th level of Pawang realm. Once every 100,000 years was a rare opportunity, and there would not be a next time. If they didn't come this time, they would not have the chance to wait for the next time. Yi Shiwen looked around, and there were also many strange beasts that he couldn't name. All of them had extraordinary bloodlines, and every one of them was extraordinary. It should be said that Yi Shiwen, as a human, was an anomaly. He walked all the way to the city, and his speed wasn't slow. But since he had already reached Ancient Weapon City, it didn't matter whether he was in a hurry or not. Even with his current speed, it took him 10 days and 10 nights. One could imagine how remote this Ancient Weapon City was. If not for the coordinates provided by Elder Kong, he would not have been able to find it. Suddenly, there was a commotion in front of him. Many people were gathered in a circle, and Yi Shiwen squeezed into it. In the middle of the road, there was an incomparably huge carriage. It was extremely luxurious, and it was paved with countless jade stones and jewels. It shone with boundless divine light, and it looked incomparably luxurious. What was even more shocking was that there were 3 ferocious beasts pulling the carriage. One of them was a golden divine hoe. Divine hoe were ancient strange beasts, and they were famous among strange beasts. They dared to eat dragons, and this golden divine hoe was an emperor among divine hoe, and its bloodline was incomparably noble. And this golden divine hoe was at the 9th level of Legend Realm. It was extraordinary, and it obviously had an extraordinary origin. But now, this divine hoe was being used to pull a carriage. Who was the owner of this carriage? Extravagance was indescribable. And next to this divine hoe was an old man from the human race. He wore a conical bamboo hat, and was dressed as a coachman. His hands were crossed, and his aura was profound. He was also an unfathomable myth expert. And unexpectedly, he was also a peak expert at the 9th level of Pawang realm. And now, he had become a coachman. There were no other guards, but it was already sufficient. 2 peak experts at the 9th level of Legend Realm were pulling the carriage. This already showed how extraordinary they were. And in front of them, there was a pair of mother and daughter. Both mother and daughter had cultivation bases. The mother had delicate features, and her cultivation base was already at the profound death realm. As for the daughter, she looked to be around 10 years old, and her cultivation base was slightly weaker. It seemed like she had just reached the longevity realm not too long ago. Most importantly, this pair of mother and daughter was a pair of humans. Yi Shiwen had been in the city for a period of time, and he had seen many experts from the various races. On the contrary, he rarely saw humans. "Lord, I beg you, please spare my daughter, little Ku. She definitely didn't mean to offend your carriage." That mother kowtowed unceasingly. profound Death Realm cultivation base was sufficient for her to be a tyrant in some minor worlds. But at this moment, she could only kowtow and beg for forgiveness. As for that daughter, she was so frightened that her entire body was trembling. In front of two Peak Legend Realm experts, she didn't even dare to breathe loudly. If it wasn't for her longevity realm cultivation base supporting her, she would have been scared to death. Impossible. You are lucky today that my young master isn't here. Otherwise, you would have to die as well. Quickly hand over your daughter, and I will spare you. That human old man spoke emotionlessly. He didn't feel any sympathy just because the person in front of him was from the same race. Lord, I beg you. Lord. The people in the surroundings were also discussing fervently. How many unlucky bastards have there been today? He who asked this human woman to be so stupid. She actually dared to touch his carriage. He was still worrying about not being able to find a reason to find trouble with her. This time, this little girl won't be able to escape. Isn't that so? I heard that Aoshiba didn't gain much advantage from Qin Lai, and his heart is burning with anger. Whoever of the human race that offended him would be captured by him to vent his anger. It doesn't matter. In any case, the human race is like this. There are absolute experts and there are also weak ants. It's very normal for hundreds or thousands of them to die. Aoshiba. After such a long time, Yi Shiwen had a different feeling when he heard this name again. He was a peerless genius from the Dragon Island. After Yi Shiwen entered the Xian world, he didn't see Aoshiba. It seemed that the Xian world was just a place for him to temper himself. He had long forgotten about it. He didn't expect to encounter Aoshiba again. Moreover, it was his family's carriage. Given Aoshiba's domineering personality, this was indeed something he would do. The Golden Divine Ho specialized in feeding on the dragon race, and Aoshiba specially captured a Golden Divine Ho. His purpose was very obvious. It was to humiliate the Divine Ho race. This was the same logic as how human experts liked to capture dragons to transport themselves. I don't want to talk nonsense with her. Since she wants to die, then it's perfect. I'll swallow her in one gulp. The Divine Ho roared and spoke in the human language. Up to you. The human old man crossed his arms and stood there expressionlessly. He didn't care at all. Fellow Taoist, please wait. Chapter 2234. My friend, please wait. At this time, a figure jumped out. It was a man dressed like a scholar. He looked like an elegant Confucian scholar. What do you want? Shen Ho glared coldly at the scholar. Do you want to be a busybody so that I can eat you too? The old man from the human race looked at the scholar coldly. The scholar cupped his hands and said, Fellow Taoists, although this child was rash, it was an unintentional mistake. Moreover, he only slightly touched your carriage from beginning to end. Is this a crime deserving of death? If you want to be a busybody, look at yourself first. Are all humans so nosy? Shen Ho grinned, looking extremely ferocious. His body was shaking, but the chariot didn't move at all, as if there was some kind of device that was removing the force from his body. If you're right, you can walk to the ends of the world. If you're unreasonable, you can't do anything. I believe that there's still a limit to this world. The scholar's expression changed slightly in the face of Shen Ho's power. However, he still said stubbornly, My friend, you're also a human. Can you bear to see your fellow human get eaten just like that? He turned to the old man from the human race, hoping to gain his support. The people around him could not help but sigh. How could they not understand that he must have become stupid from reading so much? It was obvious that this group of people was here to cause trouble for the human race. Given their arrogance, would they listen to him? My friend, this child doesn't know any better. Please let him go. Some people are born this way. I see that you're also a human, and it's not easy for you to cultivate to the 8th heaven of the Paong realm. It's not too late for you to back out now. Not only did the old man not speak up for him, but he also tried to persuade him. Roar! Shen Ho roared, shaking the heavens and the earth. Why are you wasting your breath on him? If this fellow from the human race dares to be a busybody, I'll eat him too. Obviously, he was running out of patience. Since you want to die, I don't care, said the human driver coldly. The man and the beast were incomparably powerful, but no one dared to step forward to help them. This was all too normal. During this period of time, this was not the first time this had happened in the city. It was just that this time, it was the turn of the human race. Compared to exotic beasts with noble bloodlines, ordinary humans were truly nothing to be concerned about. The scholar's expression became serious. He cultivated the Confucian Tao, and he believed in the truth in his heart. With the truth in his body, he wouldn't need to fear anything in the world. This was the philosophy of the Confucian sect. At this moment, his entire body was filled with a righteous aura, and he was no longer affected by the aura of the gods. It wasn't that he hadn't seen Confucian experts before, but it was rare to see someone with such a profound cultivation. Although this scholar was a little pedantic, it had to be said that he was indeed righteous and had the essence of a scholar who did not fear power. He wouldn't be a true scholar if he was afraid of trouble, and only knew how to protect himself. Boy, you want to talk about justice with me? I'll tell you now that my words are justice. The god roared and said with a sinister smile. Hurry up, we don't want to implicate you. The mother quickly said to the scholar. She could see that the cultivation of the scholar wasn't shallow, but there was still a huge gap between him and the man and the beast. Her heart was already dead, and she didn't want to drag anyone into this. Draw your sword to help when you see injustice on the road. Even a peddler and a pawn understand this truth. How can I stand by and watch someone die? Confucius died for a noble cause, and Mencius died for righteousness. Why should I be afraid? The scholar clenched his teeth and said, Good, very good. Confucius died for a noble cause, and Mencius died for righteousness. You are willing to sacrifice yourself for righteousness. Brother, you should be grateful. Yi Shiwen laughed and stepped into the field. The scholar was also a little surprised that someone dared to help him at this time. He couldn't help but feel happy on his face. As the saying goes, a just cause enjoys abundant support, while an unjust cause finds little support. This proved that what he had done was right. May I know your name, brother? Yi Shiwen asked. I'm Meng Haoren, the scholar said. Yi Shiwen's complexion was a little strange. He seemed to have thought of an extremely famous poet. What's wrong? Is there something wrong with my name? Meng Haoren also saw Yi Shiwen's strange expression and couldn't help but ask. Nothing. It's just that it has the same name as someone I know. I haven't introduced you yet. Yi Shiwen hadn't finished speaking when the god's roar came out. Another one has come to die. There are so many people in the human race who like to meddle in other people's business. It's just right. I'll swallow them all. Brother, this golden god is very ferocious. You don't have to use it, the scholar said with a wry smile. His realm was a level higher than Yi Shiwen's. How could he not see Yi Shiwen's cultivation? He couldn't help but smile bitterly in his heart. Don't worry. It's just an animal and an animal in human skin. What's there to be afraid of? Yi Shiwen glanced at the man and the god, and couldn't help but sneer. Especially when he saw the old man of the human race. A trace of ridicule flashed at the corner of his mouth. A dignified human powerhouse had actually become a slave with someone else. In his opinion, it was simply unimaginable. Although he had lived in the desolate era's true martial domain for many years, his concept had already been formed on that blue planet. On that planet, the human race was the superior of all living things. It had always been humans who bullied other living things. When had it been reversed? To some extent, he was a human race supremacist. You? The old man suddenly erupted with a strong aura. He couldn't keep his face anymore. Yi Shiwen's words were so obvious. He wasn't pointing at the mulberry tree but cursing the locust tree. An earth-shattering aura rushed over, and the surrounding space froze. Many people's expressions changed. The aura that erupted from an expert at the peak of the myth realm was enough to make many people retreat. Many people looked at Yi Shiwen and the scholar with pitiful eyes. The cultivation of the two wasn't weak. However, there was obviously a gap between the man and the god. Although they had good intentions, they would probably end up in a miserable state in the end. Even the scholar was slightly affected, and the mother and daughter were shivering. It was as if the heavens were collapsing and the earth was collapsing. A terrifying pressure came crashing down on them. Yi Shiwen acted as if nothing had happened. He patted the scholar's shoulder and said, "Although it's said that reason is the most important in the world, I only believe in one sentence. Reason is only within the scope of the fist. Since these two animals don't understand human language, then don't say anything more. Good lad, you have a sharp tongue. I want to see if your body is as hard as you say." The god let out an incomparably loud roar. His 3-meter-tall body suddenly leaped out. It was unknown when the carriage that was pressing down on him had broken away. It was as fast as a golden lightning. In an instant it seemed as if the entire world was under its control. A monstrous and incomparable power and imposing aura shrouded Yi Shiwen. This was a kind of biological instinctive coercion. The gods could feed on the dragon race, so one could well imagine how tyrannical they were. In fact, it was hard to tell how much more tyrannical their bloodline was compared to that of ordinary humans. Yi Shiwen immediately felt this terrifying power. Next to him, the scholar's righteous aura was stirred, and he reacted almost immediately. At some point, a long sword appeared in his hand, carrying a righteous aura. It was the Confucian scholar's gentleman's sword. Yi Shiwen was a little surprised. The god's speed was unimaginably fast. However, the scholar was able to react in time. It seemed that he wasn't an ordinary person. The Confucian school's special cultivation method wasn't without reason. This god's speed was extremely fast. It even distorted ordinary people's perception of time and space. The people around didn't see how the god made his move. However, at this critical moment, Yi Shiwen made his move. He was even faster than the scholar. He directly slapped the god. The god's bloody mouth was directly slapped by Yi Shiwen on the spot. Motherf ****, who asked you to be so pretentious? Along with this sound, the god's figure flew backward at a speed countless times faster than before. Boom! It directly destroyed a large number of residences. Finally, it stopped. This power was enough to shatter a star. However, this place was reinforced by a formation. It wasn't an ordinary place. What's going on? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Why is it that god that flew out? What the hell just happened? Why didn't I see it clearly at all? Everyone was completely shocked. They couldn't believe it. The scholar also looked at Yi Shiwen in shock. Just a moment ago, he was planning to make a move and stop this golden god from causing trouble. Who would have thought that in the next second, the situation would be reversed? The aggressive god couldn't even withstand Yi Shiwen's attack. It was directly slapped away. This was a golden god at the peak of the mythical stage. In terms of bloodline, it wasn't inferior to anyone. It could almost be called a superior among those of the same level. In the end, it was still beaten like a dog. Who was he? Idiot. You dare to be pretentious with this kind of strength? Yi Shiwen couldn't help but scold. He couldn't even withstand one of his attacks. He was completely useless. He didn't think about it. With his current terrifying palm strength, which ordinary peak of the mythical stage could withstand one of his attacks? Yi Shiwen's gaze turned to the human coachman. Where's your pride as a human expert? Was it eaten by a dog? Are you only left with this kind of ability to bully the weak? Your cultivation isn't bad. It's a pity that you chose to help the evildoer. Since you're also a human, destroy your own cultivation. I'll spare your life. Chapter 2235. The old man was shocked and angry at the same time. He had never expected that Yi Shiwen would be so terrifying. Moreover, Yi Shiwen had asked him to cripple his own cultivation. For a powerful warrior, crippling his own cultivation was more cruel than killing him. If it was before, he would have thought that this junior of the human race had gone crazy. However, the attack just now made him understand that this was not a dream. It was reality. The strength of the Divine Ho was almost the same as his. However, the Divine Ho's body had been smashed into pieces by Yi Shiwen's slap. How terrifying was the power of this palm! He simply couldn't imagine what would happen if he was slapped by it. Yi Shiwen didn't care about the old man. He then trotted to the side of the Divine Ho that he had slapped to death. A satisfied look appeared on his face. Fortunately, I didn't use my full strength. Otherwise, this meat would have been smashed into blood mist. Speaking of which, I haven't eaten Divine Ho's meat yet. He had already stored the meat of the Divine Ho that he had slapped to death into Tianyuan mirror. He usually refined the meat along with the blood. Therefore, he didn't have much need for food. The people around him were scared to the point of wetting their pants. That was a Divine Ho, a golden Divine Ho at the peak of the myth realm. If it hadn't been captured by Ao Shiba to pull the carriage, it would have been one of the strongest geniuses in the world. It wouldn't have lost to anyone. However, it had been slapped to death by this person. How terrifying was this person's realm! Moreover, he hadn't used his full strength. If he had used his full strength, wouldn't he have blasted a big hole in the ancient Tool City? Their brains quickly turned as they searched for the information of many geniuses of the human race that they had heard about. His combat strength was really tyrannical and terrifying. There was no reason that they hadn't heard of such a terrifying person before. They searched for countless information in their minds. Finally, they found the information of that scholar, Meng Haoran, one of the outstanding disciples of the mysterious Confucian sect. His cultivation wasn't the most eye-catching. However, he had once slaughtered 2 existences at the peak of the myth realm. Moreover, the 2 existences had joined forces. Although there were countless geniuses in this world, there were only a few people at their level. Their circle was very small. They felt that as long as Yi Shiwen announced his name, they would naturally understand. "Brat, don't go overboard. Do you know who our master is?" That human expert gritted his teeth and cautiously said. He didn't dare to act recklessly. He knew that he wouldn't be able to withstand a single move from Yi Shiwen. However, he couldn't tolerate the fact that he had to cripple his own martial arts. "Isn't it Ao Shiba? Even if he's right in front of me, I'll still kill him. What's the big deal? Don't think too highly of yourself. Isn't it just a dragon? If you really piss me off, so what if I slaughter you and make a pot of soup out of you?" Yi Shiwen walked all the way and said indifferently, "Do you think he will get the news and rush over now? Don't be naive. I've already sealed off the surrounding space. Unless I'm willing, he won't be able to get the slightest bit of information. Cripple your own martial arts. I don't want to repeat myself a third time." Yi Shiwen shot a cold look at this old man. He didn't have the slightest bit of sympathy for him. "Don't go too far," the old man roared. Bang! Before he finished speaking, his entire body flew up like a cannonball, and then directly crashed into the house with a bang. He was kicked away by Yi Shiwen. "Go too far. Well said. When you were being arrogant just now, did you ever think of the words 'go too far'? That coward Ao Shiba lost to Qin Lai and couldn't get back at him, so he actually wanted to get back at ordinary people. As a human, you actually helped a tyrant. Crippling your cultivation is already letting you off easy. Don't think that you can bully others just because you have Ao Shiba's support. Not everyone will give him face," Yi Shiwen said faintly. Everyone was horrified. Only then did they realize that the old man's cultivation had actually been crippled by Yi Shiwen. His entire face was extremely pale. With just one move, A master at the peak of the myth realm had his martial arts crippled, and this was Yi Shiwen showing mercy. Otherwise, he would have been killed in one move. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Just who was this person? His strength was completely above that of a myth. My master will avenge me. The old man spat out a mouthful of blood and roared. Yi Shiwen looked at him with contempt and said, "Even if he doesn't come, I will still go find him. He is in a bad mood and wants to eat people for fun. Now that I am in a bad mood, I also want to eat a dragon for fun." The old man suddenly spat out a mouthful of old blood. This was completely different from the script that he had originally imagined. Not only was Yi Shiwen not afraid at all, but he was also going to look for trouble. Yi Shiwen walked to the side of the mother and daughter and said, "Hurry up and find a place to hide. This place is not suitable for you." Yi Shiwen glanced at them and shook his head. In this place, with their cultivation, they were still too weak. "Brother, are you going to find Ao Shiba? I will go with you." Meng Haoran stepped forward and said, "It's just that I haven't asked for your name yet." "It's me, Yi Shiwen." Yi Shiwen grinned and said. His figure had already disappeared into the street. "What, he is Yi Shiwen?" The old man's eyes were red as he stared at the place where Yi Shiwen disappeared. He couldn't believe it. He had been with Ao Shiba for a long time. After returning from the ancient Phoenix domain last time, among the people that Ao Shiba could not forget, except for Qin Lai, Yi Shiwen was the only one left. It was just that he had never seen Yi Shiwen before, and he did not know what Yi Shiwen looked like. Otherwise, it would be more than this. How could he be so strong? He had never imagined that the enemy that the young master could not forget would actually become so tyrannical. He is Yi Shiwen. No wonder, no wonder. He is from the deification abyss. This year, he suddenly rose to become the strongest in the 3rd district of the deification abyss. Deification abyss, I remember now. This time, someone said that the so-called geniuses from the deification abyss are useless. It seems that it is not that there is no one in the deification abyss, but the real leader has not arrived yet. Damn, the difference in strength is too big. I always thought that they were all in the top 10 and their strength should be similar. But this Yi Shiwen's strength, could it be that he can already compete with Dao confirmation? Another fierce dragon crossing the river. Not counting those old monsters of the older generation, this time among the elite seeds selected by the major forces, I am afraid that the situation will change again. When did such a person appear in the human clan? Many people suddenly burst into an uproar. In fact, many people knew about Yi Shiwen's matter. In other words, as long as the top and most outstanding figures of the major forces appeared, the news would soon be known by others. It was also because Yi Shiwen had only been famous for a short time. Otherwise, his background might have been dug out by others. But at this time, Yi Shiwen naturally did not care about what people thought. The matter had already been done, and it did not matter anymore. "Brother Yi, you are righteous. I admire you." Meng Haoran followed Yi Shiwen and said, "Can I take it that you are praising yourself?" "Ah." Yi Shiwen laughed and looked at Meng Haoran's darkened face. He could not help but feel that it was very interesting. Those two people are not my opponent. For me, it is just a little effort. But you are a member of the Confucian sect. Do you think that I am harming the heavens? Of course not. Those people are people who read books and have become stupid. I will not do that. Meng Haoran shook his head and said, "Ha ha, well said." Yi Shiwen laughed. Originally, he was afraid that Meng Haoran was also the kind of person who read books and became stupid. He would not let go of the righteousness. "I am going to find trouble with Ao Shiba now. Are you really going to go with me?" "Yes, Dragon Island's Ao Shiba. I have also heard of your name for a long time. It is a pity that I have not had the opportunity to fight with you," Meng Haoran said firmly. It was a little different from the scholar's spirit that he showed before. At this moment, he looked a bit like a warrior. "But Brother Yi, Do you know where Aoshiba is now? I have blocked the talisman that the old guy sent for help just now. I have already determined the direction. It is not difficult to calculate, Yi Shiwen said confidently. The two continued to move forward. Although the ancient tool city was not small, the two of them were extremely fast. As they moved forward, they soon arrived at a huge garden. The garden was surrounded by a group of people. Countless people were watching. Yi Shiwen's divine senses directly swept in. He saw a group of people in a corner of a huge open space in the garden in twos and threes. Yi Shiwen glanced around. None of these people were ordinary people. They were powerful, and the weakest among them was at the peak of the myth realm. There were even some people who had concealed their auras. Yi Shiwen's sixth sense even made him feel a faint threat. Moreover, some of them were people he was familiar with. One of them was Aoshiba, whom Yi Shiwen had not seen for many years. Compared to the time when he was in the ancient Phoenix realm, he was many times more tyrannical. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His expression was leisurely and his temperament was threatening. He was one of the people who could make Yi Shiwen feel threatened. However, he looked a little impatient. Yi Shiwen did not know what was bothering him. The other person was unexpectedly the wolf cub, Yi Wudi, whom Yi Shiwen had not seen for a long time. Ever since he had followed Mu Lao to cultivate, they had rarely seen each other. Because of this, Yi Shiwen was surprised and delighted. Apart from them, there were also a few tyrannical auras. Although Yi Shiwen did not recognize them, he could feel that they were extremely terrifying. On the other side of the corner was the monkey and the others from the deification abyss. Chapter 2236. Other than the monkey, there was also the blue-eyed golden toad, the sword-carrying youth, the 10 absolute saints, and Huyen An. Yi Shiwen knew only 7 or 8 of them. Jun Dingtian was not here, and Yao Shengqing was nowhere to be seen. He had a faint guess in his heart that they were afraid of meeting him. This was not the Void Realm. It would be fine if they died, but if he killed them here, they would be dead for sure. Needless to say, he really did have such a thought. If he really had the chance, he wouldn't mind killing them to get rid of them. In the center of the field, a young man in a purple robe stood. He was taller than the average person, about 2 meters tall. A pair of wings were tucked behind his back. He had an arrogant look on his face, and his hands were golden in color, which made him look quite different. He was just standing there quietly, but he gave off a strong pressure that no one had ever felt before. Is there no one else? The young man glanced at the crowd. There was a hint of laziness in his arrogant expression. Obviously, he did not take them seriously. It seems that you are just SOSO, humph. The purple-robed young man could not help but sneer. He did not say much, and was about to turn around and return to his position. Suddenly, a young man jumped out. Tu Suling from the Spirit Slaughter sect. Please advise me. This was a figure even taller than the young man. He was about 3 meters tall, and his entire body was covered with lush hair. His hair emitted a blue light under the sunlight, like strands of ice crystals. He looked extremely extraordinary. Make your move. Otherwise, you may not have the chance later. The purple-robed young man said lightly. Tu Suling did not say much. He had seen the battle just now and did not dare to underestimate his opponent. Boom! The aura on his body instantly rose to the extreme. He did not dare to slack off. His entire body's power had been activated to the extreme, and he directly punched out. Whoosh! Wherever the fist pressure passed, the entire world was instantly frozen. It was the color of ice crystals, and in an instant it was a field of ice. Yi Shiwen narrowed his eyes. This Tu Suling was very strong. He was almost as strong as Yi Shiwen, who had yet to break through to the Tao realm a year ago. With his combat power at that time, it was almost enough to defeat everyone in the 3rd district of Transforming God Abyss. Unexpectedly, he met another one here. There were many geniuses in the world. This was almost the peak that an ordinary demigod could achieve. It was impossible to achieve the battle prowess of breaking through to the doctrine level using ordinary method. It was impossible to achieve it without great fortuitous encounters, great perseverance, or other methods. Right at this moment, a finger pierced through the heavens, piercing through the heavens. Boom! A loud explosion was heard, and the entire sky was completely shattered. Countless ice crystals instantly turned into ice shards that filled the sky, before disappearing into nothingness. The finger landed on Tu Suling's fist, and with a sickening shattering sound, Tu Suling's entire arm shattered into a bloody mist. Ah! Tu Suling was still screaming when a figure appeared in front of him. It was none other than the purple-robed youth. The Spirit Slaughter sect is only SOSO. He kicked out like lightning, tearing through the heavens and shattering the heavens. His kick landed on Tu Suling's chest. Bang! Tu Suling was blasted away like a cannonball. His speed was extremely fast. Only a few people could see the series of actions, and Yi Shiwen was one of them. He was slightly surprised. Even with Tu Suling's strength, he was sent flying in an instant. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. It started like lightning and ended like lightning. Many people were still gasping in surprise. They did not even see what happened before Tu Suling was defeated. Everyone held their breaths and focused their attention. After a short moment of silence, they instantly cried out in surprise. Or rather, they had completely exploded. So strong. Tu Suling is already an invincible demigod, but he couldn't even take a single hit. The Shrouding Heavens sect is indeed a sect founded by a king powerhouse. It's unimaginable that Emojingda has already defeated the outstanding disciples of 8 major forces before he even made a move. I can't believe it. So strong. Is his combat strength really comparable to that of a deity? It's indeed a famous sect in Untainted Land. It's indeed not something that can be compared to outside of Untainted Land. Countless people were shocked by Emojingda's strength. Tu Suling was already considered extremely strong in the eyes of the crowd. But now, it seemed that other than showing off Emojingda's strength, his strength was practically useless. Emojingda's super shadowing finger is getting more and more powerful. After returning from special training, his combat strength has indeed made a breakthrough. He alone is enough to defeat all the so-called geniuses and elites from outside of Untainted Land. Those people think they're so great, but they're just frogs in a well. What a joke. A strange beast lying on the side of the field spoke with disdain. It was the size of an ox and looked like a tiger. It had the fur of a hedgehog and a pair of wings. It looked extremely ferocious. Many people paled at its words because they were all from outside of Untainted Land. They were the frogs in the well that the strange beast was referring to. They're simply too arrogant. They've gone too far. Someone gnashed his teeth in anger. He was extremely depressed. Although they're arrogant, they do have the strength. I'm afraid we're no match for them. Don't you recognize that strange beast? It's the legendary Chi Cheong, a famous ferocious beast clan. If you provoke it, it even dares to devour a Tao-confirming expert. How can we afford to provoke such a lawless clan? Although many people were indignant, they did not dare to step forward. Most of them came from many famous sects in the macro world. But in front of these people, they were really not enough. Tu Suling of the Spirit Slaughter sect could not even block a single move. He was just like an ant. These people are relying on their strength to be lawless. Meng Haoran could not help but say. His tone was also quite disapproving. Yi Shiwen was still thinking about things related to Untainted Land. He had not yet recovered from his thoughts when he saw Emojingda's gaze turn to the group from Deity Transformation Abyss. Deity Transformation Abyss, did none of you come out to teach them a lesson? Emojingda said lightly. Sure enough, it said that Shrouding Heavens sect and Deity Transformation Abyss have been competing in many areas. Both sides are already like fire and water. This time, there are no outstanding geniuses from deity transformation abyss. Will Mo Zhengde let go of this opportunity to humiliate deity transformation abyss? Definitely not. But this time, there are indeed no outstanding geniuses from deity transformation abyss. At most, there is no difference between them and Tu Suling. However, the Spirit Slaughter sect is not as powerful as deity transformation abyss. There's nothing we can do if we're being bullied. Everyone looked over. Sure enough, the group from deity transformation abyss was already pale with anger. During this period of time, they had clearly been bullied many times. Among the masters who had come this time, there were hundreds of large and small forces. However, there were only a few regal sections. It was difficult for the group from deity transformation abyss to not attract attention. Not to mention, the competition between the major regal sects was unavoidable. Now, Mo Zhengde was singling out deity transformation abyss for trouble. As for the other people who could stand side by side with Mo Zhengde, they all stood with their arms crossed. They had no intention of getting involved. This was a conflict between two regal sects, and they did not want to get involved. You can be arrogant all you want. When he arrives, you'll be crying. Someone from deity transformation abyss could not help but say. As soon as his voice fell, everyone from deity transformation abyss suddenly became spirited. Yes, they might not be Mo Zhengde's opponent, but it did not mean that there was no one in deity transformation abyss. It was just that the real experts had not arrived yet. Not to mention him, even Jun Dingtian should not be inferior to Mo Zhengde. What's there to be proud of? It's not that there are no experts in deity transformation abyss, it's just that we haven't arrived yet. Someone said indignantly. The expert they are talking about, is it Yi Shiwen who won this time? I heard that he's not bad and quite powerful, but even if he's here, I'm afraid he won't be able to solve the problem. I'm afraid that Mo Zhengde is already able to fight against Dao validation. No matter how powerful Yi Shiwen is, can he be more powerful than Tu Suling? Sigh, there are fewer and fewer experts outside the ancient wilderness now. Most of the geniuses have been recruited by the major regal sects of the ancient wilderness. The rest have probably been recruited by deity transformation abyss and the others, causing the ancient wilderness to become more and more powerful. It's not without reason that they look down on us. Nowadays, the ancient wilderness has long been called the wilderness by them. Although it's a derogatory term, it's not without reason. Oh, so you still have experts. Ha 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 ha, that's ridiculous. But where are they? Mo Zhengde laughed wildly. Trash will always be trash. Don't find excuses for yourself. There are also experts. Why don't you bring out the experts from the deity transformation abyss? You can even bring out those old guys from the Hidden Valley. You've gone too far. I'm Sun Qingtian, please advise me. Monkey finally couldn't stand it anymore. He had a very fiery temper, and he had never been bullied to this extent before. This was simply too much. Finally, there's someone with guts, Mo Zhengde said with a sneer. He didn't put monkey in his eyes at all. After breaking through a limit in battle, it was a different world. It was not something they could imagine. Don't be impulsive, you're no match for him. Huyen Ayanu pulled monkey and couldn't help but advise him. He's already at our door, we have no other choice. Besides, I also want to experience the martial arts of the experts from Covering Heaven sect. Monkey broke free from Huyen Ayanu's hand and stepped forward. Chapter 2237. The monkey was not a person who could swallow humiliation. Whether it was his background or bloodline, he was not inferior to others. How could he swallow humiliation? Good, ha ha ha, you have guts, Mo Zhengde sneered. Let me see what the divine abyss is capable of. Monkey looked at Mo Zhengde and said, Take my stick first. With a loud roar, an iron rod swept out, instantly forming layers of curtains that directly smashed down towards Emojingda, exploding with countless divine lights. Finger hand breaks the sky. Emojingda pointed out a golden finger on the spot, shattering the sky, smashing everything along the way, directly blasting towards the iron rod. Clang! An incomparably loud explosion rang out. Monkey was forced back more than 10 steps before he finally came to a stop. Both his hands were trembling, and so was his entire iron rod. Emojingda was standing there motionlessly. Clearly, he was not affected at all. How is this possible? Sun Qingtian's rod is probably lacking a divine tool. Although it is lacking a divine tool, it is still a divine tool in essence. This Emojingda can actually resist it with his bare hand. Everyone was a little dumbfounded. It was a terrifying and shocking collision. You don't know this, do you? All of shrouding heaven's power is in their hands. In fact, their hands are divine weapons. They are not any weaker than divine weapons. That's right. You don't know. In the field, Emojingda sneered and looked at the monkey. There was a bit of disdain in his eyes. You have some skills, a little stronger than that trash just now. Whoosh! He suddenly stepped on the ground and his whole body shook. In an instant, he had already appeared in front of the monkey. This was also an extremely powerful body technique, and it was extremely fast. At this moment, a golden light burst out from the monkey's eyes, as if he had seen through Emojingda's movements. His whole body suddenly kept retreating, and with a somersault, he directly flipped out, dodging Emojingda's attack, and then directly smashed an iron rod down on the spot. Bang! The iron rod was directly caught by Emojingda, and the shock wave turned into smithereens, shattering the space. This blow was extremely fast, and both sides were very fast. Yi Shiwen's eyes lit up. The monkey's progress this year was really great. It had completely caught up with him a year ago. However, it was still impossible for it to be compared with him now. It wasn't easy to have the fighting prowess of a Dao-confirming expert. It depended on luck most of the time. Yi Shiwen might have been stuck at this level for countless years if he didn't have luck. However, Emojingda was stronger. The monkey had already been forced to go all out, but Emojingda had yet to go all out. The battle was very intense, and both sides seemed to be in full swing. However, Yi Shiwen could see that Emojingda hadn't used his full strength yet. Bang! 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 Time and time again, the collisions shook the heavens and the earth, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. The experts in the surroundings immediately set up barriers and joined hands to block the shockwave. Otherwise, how could they block the terrifying shockwaves that could even shatter stars? Take another strike from me, spherical heaven strike. The monkey let out a sharp roar, and countless divine rays swept out from the iron rod in his hand. The wind generated by the rod turned into a huge storm, and the laws were directly displayed. Under the influence of a mysterious force, the iron rod smashed down with a loud bang. In the face of this force, even time was shattered and destroyed. It became the theme of everything. Everyone was exclaiming. The monkey's strength was really amazing. When it was fully displayed, there weren't many people who could withstand it on the spot. However, Emojingda pointed with a finger. Finger breaks the heavens. It was still the same move. As the saying goes, a single move can dominate the world. He relied on this move to forcefully take down the monkey's rod. It wasn't the slightest bit inferior. This finger was so amazing. It directly pointed and broke through the layers of shadows of the monkey's rod. The divine ray storm that the monkey had swept out couldn't withstand a single blow in front of this finger. It was defeated as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Bang! The monkey let out a blood-curdling scream. The flesh on his entire arm split open, and fresh blood splattered out. His entire body was sent flying, and his golden fur was dyed red with fresh blood. The blood was almost completely pure gold, which also symbolized his amazing cultivation. Do you know why I've tolerated you until now and given you a chance to perform? That's because I want to defeat you when you're at your most complacent. I want everyone to know that even if you unleash your full strength, you won't be able to withstand a single blow from me. You're just a big ant, Emojingda said coldly. At this time, everyone finally understood why Tu Suling couldn't withstand a single blow in front of Emojingda, and why the monkey could continuously display shocking attacks. It turned out that this was the real reason. Even if the monkey displayed a truly shocking attack, he was just trash that could be defeated with a single palm strike in front of Emojingda. What was the gap? This was the gap. Emojingda used the cruelest method to announce the gap between him and the monkey. The monkey struggled for a while, but at this time, his internal organs were severely damaged, and there was no way for him to recover in a short time. He could only gnash his teeth and look at Emojingda, wishing he could tear him into pieces. Why, don't the rest of you want to avenge him? Deification Abyss is nothing more than this, and so is the Regis sect. Emojingda glanced at the people in the deity transformation abyss, as if he was trying to goad them into action. The people of deification abyss suddenly gnashed their teeth, and their faces turned pale, but there was nothing they could do. Emojingda's strength was too strong. Even if they had gone through a year of special training and strengthening, they were still too far behind in front of Emojingda. It would be good if that person was here. If it was that person, he might have a way to deal with Emojingda. At this time, in their minds, there was only the figure of that amazing champion. At this time, only he might be able to turn the tide. By the way, I heard that all of you were defeated by that human named Yishiwen. TSK, I'm not interested in defeating a group of defeated people. What about that Yishiwen? Is he afraid and doesn't dare to come? Just in time to defeat him together. I want to let everyone see that deification abyss is nothing more than this. Emojingda sneered. Today, he was destined to continue humiliating deification abyss. It was to bully the existence of no amazing geniuses in this year's deification abyss. At the very least, there was no existence that could compete with the gods. Yishiwen. Hearing this name, Aoshiba's eyes suddenly flashed. This name left a deep impression on him. In his life, he had only suffered losses from two humans. One was Qin Lai and the other was Yishiwen. Of course, he still did not know that of the two subordinates he recruited, one was dead and the other was crippled. And Yi Wudi's eyes suddenly lit up. His relationship with Yishiwen was naturally needless to say. It could be said that after his rebirth, he had always been with Yishiwen. Their relationship was like that of blood brothers. Seeing that Emojingda actually brought the topic to Yishiwen, Yi Wudi frowned and directly stood out, saying, Emojingda, I don't care if you want to cause trouble for deification abyss, but you'd better not involve Yishiwen. Emojingda was startled. He did not expect that Yi Wudi, who seemed to have nothing to do with deification abyss, would actually stand out. Yi Wudi, what do you mean? Do you want to go against my shrouding heavens sect for deification abyss? Emojingda said with a cold smile. Although he was afraid of Yi Wudi's strength, he was not afraid. Yi Wudi did not show any fear. He stepped forward and said, So what if I go against you? Besides, do you not understand human language? I mean, regardless of the grudge between you and deification abyss, it's best not to involve Yishiwen. If you talk nonsense again, be careful that I beat you up so badly that even your mother can't recognize you. Do you think you can take care of him? Emojingda finally understood that the crux of the matter was Yishiwen. Yishiwen, Yi Wudi, was there any relationship between the two? This name made him think of many things, but he had no evidence. However, at this time, he could not back down. He secretly hated Yi Wudi for not giving him a way out. What, you want to fight? I'll fight you anytime, Emojingda said. In his opinion, Yi Wudi was the person who was qualified to fight him. Previously, Whether it was the monkey or Tu Suling, they were not qualified to fight him at all. They were just big ants. Okay, let me see how much you've improved over the years, Yi Wuti said without showing any weakness. His eyes were also full of fighting spirit. Retreat, these two guys who can fight against gods are actually going to fight. Let's retreat to a safe place. Let's go, don't get caught in the crossfire. Many people suddenly became anxious. Just now, it was fine to watch the show because Emo Jingde had not used his full strength. However, it was different now. Two experts who could fight against Dao confirmation experts were fighting. How could they not use their full strength? No one wanted to be killed by the other. The two sides were at daggers drawn, as if a fierce conflict could break out at any time. At this time, Ao Shiba, who had been watching the show, stood up and swept his gaze across the crowd. He shouted, "Yi Shiwen, I know you're here. Come out if you can." Everyone was startled. This was completely out of everyone's expectations. The Yi Shiwen that Emo Jingde had mentioned was the culprit who had almost caused a fight between Emo Jingde and Yi Wuti. Could it be that he had also appeared? After seeing the monkey's violent attack power, many people began to look forward to seeing how tyrannical Yi Shiwen, who was able to suppress the monkey and win the championship, was. And Yi Shiwen had actually arrived at the scene. Everyone began to look around, hoping to find Yi Shiwen's whereabouts. Chapter 2238. Yi Shiwen sighed. He knew that Ao Shiba must have received the news, but he did not intend to hide it, so it did not matter. He walked directly through the crowd and came out. "Ao Shiba, you got the news a little slower than I thought?" Yi Shiwen said faintly, as if he was not affected by Ao Shiba's previous words. Ao Shiba's face was ashen. He already knew that Yi Shiwen had killed one of his subordinates and crippled the other. This was simply a slap in the face. If he could not get back at Yi Shiwen, how could he stand in the world in the future? "How dare you show up?" Ao Shiba's eyes were cold, and he said this through gritted teeth. "Are you Yi Shiwen?" At this time, Emo Jingde also looked over. From the beginning, this person who had not appeared yet had become the focus of everything. Everyone in the deification abyss had been looking forward to the appearance of the so-called number one in the deification abyss, and Yi Wuti almost fought with him because of this. His eyes were extremely unfriendly, but what he thought was that Yi Shiwen did not even care about him. He walked to Yi Wuti's side, his eyes filled with joy. The two of them hadn't seen each other for a long time. They were basically in different places. If it wasn't for this opportunity, who knew when they would meet again? "Is old Mu all right?" Yi Shiwen asked. Back then, he also received benefits from old Mu. The sky flipping seal was still one of his most powerful moves, and he had also received guidance from old Mu. "That old guy is fine, you don't have to worry," Yi Wuti said carelessly, but his face was full of smiles. "Yi Shiwen, be careful, that guy is not easy to deal with." The monkey limped over, his eyes full of fighting spirit, but also a little sad. He was almost completely defeated by Emo Jingde just now. He did not want to use words to cover up for himself. That was not something he would do. "I'm talking to you, did you hear me?" Emo Jingde roared, and a terrible power was released from his hand, turning into a terrible divine light that swept out directly and fell towards Yi Shiwen. However, before this terrifying power could be released, it was grabbed by a large hand. Then, like a cloud of smoke, it was directly grabbed and crushed. Emo Jingde's eyes were filled with surprise and bewilderment. His offensive had been completely blocked by Yi Shiwen. Although he hadn't used his full strength, he was still in existence that ordinary experts at the peak of the myth realm couldn't compare with. Yi Shiwen glanced at Emo Jingde and said, "Why are you in such a hurry? If you want to die, you have plenty of time." "What? I want to die? Good, good, good," Emo Jingde said while gnashing his teeth. He had never been slapped in the face like this before. He has become stronger again. Blue-eyed Golden Toad clenched his fists. This year of special training had allowed his strength to progress by leaps and bounds, but compared to Yi Shiwen, he was still incomparable. In fact, the gap between the two was even wider. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Yi Shiwen, especially those who wanted to watch a good show. This time, they were even more excited, especially since Yi Shiwen had just casually displayed a strength far beyond that of an ordinary person. It seemed like there was going to be another fierce battle. Emo Jingde, do you want to die? Yi Wudi's eyes widened in anger. He had already warned Emo Jingde just now, but Emo Jingde still dared to make a move under his nose. Yi Shiwen, do you only know how to hide behind others? Emo Jingde didn't look at Yi Wudi, but at Yi Shiwen instead. His eyes were filled with incomparable provocation. I don't need you to do anything. Yi Shiwen pressed his hand on Yi Wudi's shoulder, pressing the irascible Yi Wudi down. He took a step forward and walked in front of Emo Jingde, saying, Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Yi Shiwen. Ao Shiba roared, I will tear you apart with my own hands. You are no match for Qinlai, and you will not be a match for me either. Yi Shiwen said disdainfully, I don't care who wants to go first, or both of you. Hurry up, don't waste time. Arrogant! Arrogant! Ao Shiba and Emo Jingde's faces turned green and white. They were completely infuriated by Yi Shiwen. He did not take them seriously at all, and he even wanted to fight one against two. I will go first. I will go first, the two said at the same time and then looked at each other. Their eyes were extremely unfriendly, and they might even fight on the spot. It's up to you. I will wait for you in the universe. Yi Shiwen directly turned into a ball of golden light and disappeared from the city, flying directly into the universe. Countless divine senses swept over. After a while, Emo Jingde flew out. Obviously, he had a tacit understanding with Ao Shiba. In this battle, he would attack first. Emo Jingde glanced at Yi Shiwen with an indifferent expression. He suddenly attacked with a finger. He did not hold back like he did with the monkey just now. Instead, he suddenly attacked. Boom! A majestic aura swept out in an instant. The finger directly broke the sky, and the broken cracks spread towards Yi Shiwen. Finger breaking the sky. As soon as he attacked, the sky trembled. Yi Shiwen did not give in at all. He sneered and said, Finger breaking the sky. I think you are only SOSO. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and golden liquid instantly rushed out, forming an incomparably powerful fist energy, and blasted towards Emo Jingde. Rumble! The terrifying power surged, and the void of the universe instantly turned into nothingness, and the stars trembled. Thump thump thump! Emo Jingde kept retreating. A terrifying power was wreaking havoc on his body. His palm was as tyrannical as a divine tool. However, it didn't mean that his entire body was like that. Yi Shiwen was different. His tyrant body had already reached the Deshang realm. There wasn't a single part of his body that hadn't been cultivated to the extreme. As soon as the two sides exchanged blows, it was obvious who was stronger. Yi Shiwen did not give him any chance. He immediately stepped forward and pinched a seal in his hand. It turned into a huge divine seal, and smashed towards Emo Jingde. Countless laws manifested, forming a chain, and wrapped around Yi Shiwen's hand. It looked incomparably gorgeous, and divine light burst out. Clang! A huge roar sounded, and the sky-flipping seal directly hit Emo Jingde's body. Bang! Emo Jingde's whole body was blasted out, and he crossed thousands of miles of the universe. As soon as he attacked, Emo Jingde was blasted out. Everyone was silent, and the whole scene looked extremely strange. It seemed that the extremely tyrannical Emo Jingde, who had defeated countless opponents, was not a match for Yi Shiwen at all. Emo Jingde roared, and his voice shook the entire universe. He looked abnormally embarrassed, and his face was ashen. Ever since his combat power had a breakthrough, he had never been so embarrassed. This time, he was forced into such an embarrassing situation by Yi Shiwen. It was unprecedented, and it was also an unimaginable humiliation. He regrouped and instantly attacked. His fingers seemed to have turned into the sharpest sword, and it pierced through the vast sky. At this time, he did not dare to underestimate Yi Shiwen anymore, and he had finished writing. He was very clear that this was a life-and-death enemy. If he could not defeat Yi Shiwen, he was afraid that there would be big trouble in the future. This finger was like a long dragon, and it smashed everything. The divine light that burst out was like a storm, and it directly attacked. "See how I break your finger breaking the sky!" Yi Shiwen roared, and his 5 fingers clenched into a fist, and turned into a huge human world. 6 paths of reincarnation fists human Tao fist. The terrible fist momentum formed a vast and mighty torrent, like a long river, and ruthlessly blasted out. Bang! A terrible collision broke out in an instant, and a mushroom cloud lit up the entire universe. Even the experts in ancient Tool City could see this terrible mushroom cloud with their naked eyes. All the principles manifested in an instant, and then were annihilated. Thump, thump, thump. Mo Zhengda's finger breaking the sky was completely broken by Yi Shiwen. His whole body kept retreating, and retreated hundreds of miles. He kept trying to stabilize his body, but Yi Shiwen's power was too violent. His finger breaking the sky was already very powerful, but compared to Yi Shiwen, it was not enough at all. Again, Yi Shiwen roared, and his blood and chi surged, and his black hair fluttered. He took a step forward, and turned into a group of golden light, and instantly rushed in front of Mo Zhengda. A pair of wind and thunder wings appeared behind him, and covered the sky. In the next moment, he had already rushed in front of Mo Zhengda. Human Tao fist. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist, and a punch blasted out, and directly turned into a huge human Tao world. Countless stars were overshadowed by this human Tao world. At this time, Mo Zhengda did not have enough time to regain his footing, and counterattacked on the spot. He raised his whole body's martial power, and concentrated it on his finger, and pointed out the most powerful finger in his life. Boom! A terrifying collision sound rang out, and the sparks that burst out set off a powerful energy storm. Everything in the surroundings was crushed and shattered, and then it swept out in all directions at an astonishing speed. Bang! Mo Zhengda was directly blasted away, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. His complexion was extremely ugly, and completely pale. He had been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen's attack. Although his combat power had soared, and his body had also improved to a considerable level, but he still could not withstand Yi Shiwen's continuous crazy attack. He had yet to react, and Yi Shiwen's offensive had already arrived. "One more move, and I will completely defeat you." Yi Shiwen's figure had not been seen, but his offensive had already arrived in the next moment. It was the sky-flipping seal, and it carried a terrifying momentum that could turn the world upside down. Boom! The sky-flipping seal directly blasted into Mo Zhengda's body. Chapter 2239. A terrifying force erupted from his body. Despite Mo Zhengda's physical strength, he was still blasted into a bloody mess when he was almost defenseless. His physical body was on the verge of collapsing. Swish! With a sharp piercing sound, Mo Zhengda was like a cannonball, directly piercing through the sky, and then directly fell into Ancient Weapon City, smashing a huge pit in the city that had been reinforced by countless arrays. Everyone was silent, completely scared out of their wit. Such a battle was simply earth-shattering, but on the contrary, the process of the battle was very fast and short. It should be said that from the beginning to the end, Mo Zhengda was completely suppressed by Yi Shiwen, unable to display his strength at all. He was completely beaten up by Yi Shiwen, completely not a match for Yi Shiwen. Emojingda had completely displayed his full strength, but he was still not a match for Yi Shiwen. How tyrannical was this? It was too terrifying. So strong. Some people finally reacted now, as if they had just walked out from the shock of what just happened. Earlier, Emojingda had easily defeated Tu Suling, Monkey and the others. It was almost a complete victory, showing his overwhelming strength. However, in front of Yi Shiwen, it was almost a one-sided massacre. This was simply too dramatic. But they were very clear that Emojingda, who easily defeated Tu Suling, Monkey, and the others, was not a pushover. His combat strength was almost comparable to that of Dao confirmation. If such strength was said to be weak, how could they accept it? There was only one possibility, and that was that Yi Shiwen was too strong. Fast, so fast. Monkey stared at Yi Shiwen. Previously, he could still fight with Yi Shiwen, but now it seemed that the gap between them was even bigger, and he was not even qualified to fight with Yi Shiwen. In his heart, the desire for Dao confirmation was infinitely strong. Dao confirmation in a demigod device was comparable to Dao confirmation, but not everyone could do it. To a large extent, it was only possible if one was extremely lucky. In comparison, it was much easier to prove one's Dao. Once they confirmed their Dao, they would return to the starting line. Their current advantage would no longer be there. They would just be a little stronger than the ordinary orthodox Dao newcomers. At this moment, the monkey was not the only one who was shocked by this scene. The 10 absolute saints, Huyen Eanu, the blue-eyed golden toad, and the others were all completely shocked. Especially Huyen Eanu. When she first saw Yi Shiwen, she was able to force Yi Shiwen to go all out with just one punch, but she was still unable to withstand it. But now, she was afraid that she would not be able to withstand even one move from Yi Shiwen. The situation seemed to have completely reversed. Yi Wudi looked at Yi Shiwen with a burning gaze. He had been improving all these years, but Yi Shiwen's speed didn't seem to be slow either. So strong. This Yi Shiwen's strength is probably more powerful than ordinary Dao confirmation, but he's not even at the peak of the myth realm. He's only at the 8th level of Paong realm, and yet he has such strength. This is too abnormal. Many people reacted. The truly terrifying thing was not Yi Shiwen's strength. After all, he had already reached the Dao confirmation level. Any more terrifying was nothing. What really made them feel suffocated was Yi Shiwen's realm. A mere 8th level of Paong realm could already be comparable to Dao confirmation. In this case, once he confirmed his Dao, wouldn't he be immediately invincible? That kind of situation was simply unimaginable. Yi Shiwen stood with his hands behind his back. For him, this was nothing. He had already killed 2 real gods, let alone comparable to gods. That was only comparable in terms of combat power. If he used his full strength now, even gods would be seriously injured. No matter how strong Pingmojingda was, he could only be comparable to Dao confirmation. His physical body could not truly be comparable to a divine shell, so it was enough to seriously injure him. Yi Shiwen did not chase after him. There was no need at all. He stood in the universe like a golden god. Divinity kept gushing out from under his feet, like an ocean, sweeping in all directions, turning into a huge ocean of domain. In this domain, he was the real god. Aoshiba, make your move. Now it's your turn. Yi Shiwen said faintly, but his voice had extraordinary penetrating power. It was transmitted to the distant ancient weapon city. Everyone was stunned. He had just finished fighting with an expert comparable to a god, and now he was going to challenge another expert who was not weak or even stronger. At this moment, many experts seemed to have just remembered that Yi Shiwen had said at the beginning that he could attack at will, or it did not matter if he attacked together. 1 against 2 was more than enough. Previously, many people thought that Yi Shiwen was too arrogant. Now, it seemed that Yi Shiwen was not arrogant, but true. He indeed had such strength. Roar! A loud dragon roar came from ancient Weapon City, and the whole universe was immersed in his dragon roar. The terrifying sound waves in the void, like a tsunami, swept towards Yi Shiwen. This was the first wave of attack he launched, and he wanted to blast Yi Shiwen to death. What a terrifying sound wave! In the distance, everyone was shocked. In this sound wave, there were countless talismans with law lines mixed in it. The rumbling thunder covered the sky and the earth, and it had the terrible power to shatter the stars. Boom! Yi Shiwen stretched out his big hand, and grabbed and extinguished this terrifying sound wave. It seemed as if this sound wave was nothing in his hand, and was directly extinguished by his hand. Swish! Just as Yi Shiwen broke through this terrifying sound wave, a huge dragon claw descended from the sky, bursting with a dazzling divine radiance, and directly clawed at Yi Shiwen. The terrifying power caused the sky to collapse under the power of this claw. Dragon Claw. It was Aoshiba. Aoshiba was the most distinguished genius of the Dragon Clan, the five-clawed Golden Dragon Clan. When he attacked, the whole world wailed. At this critical moment, Yi Shiwen directly attacked. He clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and blasted out the human Dao fist. Boom! The void collapsed crazily, bursting with endless divine light, and the whole world suddenly turned red. After blocking this attack, Aoshiba was also forced out of the void. Aoshiba stood in the void, and around him, the dragon power was constantly emitted, faintly forming a golden dragon, occupying the universe, like a supreme existence in the universe. You have some skills to be able to block my dragon claw. No wonder you dare to speak so arrogantly. A terrifying murderous intention burst out of Aoshiba's eyes. It was beyond his expectations that Yi Shiwen would force him to this extent. How could he not be angry with Yi Shiwen? It's enough to kill you, Yi Shiwen said lightly. Kill me? You think you can do it? Aoshiba sneered and directly attacked. His dragon claw clawed directly, causing the world to tremble violently. Although both of them were not deities, such terrifying power was comparable to that of a real deity. 2 deities fighting in the void, this kind of terrifying power could be imagined. Many people in ancient Weapon City were frightened to see this. The 2 sides fighting were too terrifying, and no one was a match for them. Most people asked themselves if they were a match for such existences. The golden dragon that Aoshiba blasted out was also a golden color, and it complemented Yi Shiwen's divinity. It looked as if the whole universe was dyed golden. In particular, the golden dragon power that Aoshiba blasted out was like endless giant waves, and he slashed the waves in the monstrous waves, fighting in the monstrous waves. He was like the Sea Dragon King who truly controlled the world and the sea. This was his domain, and in this domain, he was able to suppress the world. Yi Shiwen also directly launched his domain of the power of wind and thunder, and together with his golden divinity, he constantly attacked Aoshiba's domain. The 2 domains were completely tangled together, devouring each other. It looked extremely terrifying. Yi Shiwen casually brandished his offensive, and a variety of martial arts erupted in his hands with incomparable terrifying power. And this time, he used the sky-splitting sword, casually brandishing the sword chi. The sky-splitting sword constantly swallowed and spat out sword chi. At this time, Yi Shiwen had completely integrated with the swordsmanship of the sky-splitting sword. He was incomparably brave, and his whole person was like a sharp sword with boundless wind. What a terrifying swordsmanship! Just now, I thought that he was proficient in boxing. I didn't expect that his cultivation in swordsmanship is not bad, and even a notch higher. At this time, when everyone saw Yi Shiwen fighting with Aoshiba, they were completely shocked. Yi Shiwen's swordsmanship was too pure. If someone said that he was a peerless swordsman, perhaps most people would completely believe it. At this moment, if they closed their eyes, they would almost feel that Aoshiba was fighting with a sharp sword in the air. This scene was very shocking. Yi Shiwen has turned himself into a sword. He really wants to become one with the sword. Looking at him, it is like seeing the boundless power of the ancient sword cultivators. Many people were amazed, but Monkey and the others were even more amazed. It was no secret that Yi Shiwen had obtained the sky-splitting sword and the Extreme King's shocking sword. However, it was only a little more than a year since Yi Shiwen obtained the sky-splitting sword and the Extreme King's shocking sword. In just a little more than a year, Yi Shiwen's understanding of the Extreme King's shocking sword had actually reached such a level. It was really amazing. Naturally, they would not know that Yi Shiwen had finally deduced the Extreme King's shocking sword to its current level by burning a full 3,000 years of his lifespan. Yi Shiwen relied on his tyrannical gilded tyrant form, and the strength of his body was comparable to a divine tool. Therefore, when he fought, he was simply like a madman. He did not have any defense at all and just attacked freely. This finally enraged Aoshiba. Chapter 2240. The physical body of the dragon race was also famous for its tyrannical strength. Many races even used the dragon race as a standard. Not to mention, the five-clawed golden dragon was the most noble of the dragon race. It was the king of the dragons. The strength of its physical body could be imagined. It was as if it was made of steel. Originally, this was what he was good at. He used it to crush his opponent. He was almost invincible. He was fearless even if his realm was higher than his. After all, it was difficult to compare with his physical body. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen would snatch to such an abnormal extent? Relying on the tyrannical strength of his gilded tyrant form, he did not take Aoshiba seriously at all. He constantly attacked like a madman, exchanging injury for injury. At least in his opinion, this was a method of exchanging injury for injury. Therefore, he was completely enraged. He felt that he was being provoked. He roared continuously. The blood in his body was surging, making a thunderous sound. It was like the sound of thunder. The momentum was extremely terrifying. He himself was a supreme expert who had proven his Tao, and his power was limitless. The power hidden in his bloodline was instantly stimulated, and the terrifying pressure that belonged to the Golden Dragon clan was also released in an instant, sweeping out with great momentum. Yi Shiwen looked at the changes of Aoshiba. His expression did not change. He believed that the tyrannical strength of the gilded tyrant form would not lose to anyone. Aoshiba's strength was tyrannical. He was invincible among his peers. He was definitely a top figure among his peers. It was a pity that he met Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen was even more monstrous. Yi Shiwen was proficient in swordsmanship, boxing, and saber arts. He was invincible, and his physical body was even more tyrannical, especially when he thought of Yi Shiwen's human identity. He was already suppressed by Qin Lai. His heart was even more sullen. It was enough that one person had climbed over his head. Was there going to be another one? Qin Lai was born in a rich and powerful family. The education that he received since childhood was not inferior to him. In fact, it was even better than him. Ever since he was young, he had often gone against the natural order to conquer warriors of a higher realm than him. Even if it was a god, he had the confidence to fight them. He did not care about those of the same generation. He was almost one of the most outstanding geniuses of his race. This time, the Weapon Emperor Heaven's treasury wasn't just for the various great forces to join hands and reap benefits. At the same time, it was also a platform for the various great forces to intimidate each other and display their strength. He had originally wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to become the undisputed number one of his generation. Who would have thought that he would suffer at the hands of Qin Lai and Yi Shiwen? Die. Aoshiba's attack arrived in an instant, and a claw tore through the sky. Yi Shiwen used the space-splitting sword to deflect the claw. He was about to counterattack when a bead suddenly appeared on top of Aoshiba's head. The pearl began to spin, and in an instant, it emitted an unparalleled pressure that caused the ground to collapse. Could this be a Dragon Ball? Yi Shiwen said in a loud voice. At this moment, even he was somewhat surprised. This was the Dragon Clan's life-bonded magic weapon, the Dragon Ball. The Dragon Clan was a very proud race. For them, there was nothing stronger than themselves. Their flesh was the strongest weapon. Therefore, many of the Dragon Clan did not practice any life-bonded magic weapon at all. Many of them only condensed the Dragon Ball in their body. It was their life-bonded magic weapon, something that concerned their life. It could be said that most of the Dragon Clan's cultivation was concentrated on the Dragon Ball. Once the Dragon Ball was taken out, it could be said that the Dragon Clan had completely brought out their full strength. They were going crazy. Die. You're lucky to die under my Dragon Ball. Aoshiba's face showed a cruel and sinister smile. The Dragon Ball in his hand erupted with a terrifying power comparable to a divine tool. Moreover, because this was the Dragon Ball that concerned his life, the power it exerted was even stronger. Yi Shiwen felt a little strange. The life-bonded Dragon Ball of the Dragon Clan was indeed very powerful. However, this Dragon Ball had obviously surpassed the demigod realm and entered the Tao Confirmation realm. Aoshiba himself was only in the demigod realm. How could he condense a life-bonded magic weapon of the divine level? This was simply impossible. As soon as the Dragon Ball appeared, a terrifying pressure instantly spread across the entire universe. Even the ancient Tool City was transmitted. In the ancient Tool City, many people were shivering. Those who had not reached the demigod realm were even lying on the ground. In the face of this power, their strength was simply too weak. It was almost like the pressure of a life level. Even a demigod would barely be able to protect himself under the pressure of the Dragon Clan. The horror of this Dragon Ball had exceeded everyone's previous expectations. How can this Dragon Ball be so strong? Even if it is comparable to the Tao Confirmation realm, it is still not the Tao Confirmation realm. How can it condense a Dragon Ball of the divine tool level? Not only Yi Shiwen, but many people also had the same doubt. To put it in one sentence, it was not scientific. That Dragon Ball of his must have absorbed other Dragon Balls of the divine tool level. That's why it can form such amazing power. Yi Wudi narrowed his eyes and deduced. By doing this, he will definitely be able to increase his strength in a short period of time. Moreover, he will be able to absorb the power sealed in the Dragon Ball. For the Dragon Clan, there is nothing faster than this method of cultivation. However, if he completely refines it, then it will be fine. Otherwise, I'm afraid that his future cultivation will be greatly affected. It seems that being defeated by Qin Lai this time is a great humiliation to him. Otherwise, he would not have chosen such a risky method. Everyone nodded one after another. So that's how it was. This was also normal. Although swallowing the power left in the Dragon Ball by others could improve quickly, how could there not be any side effects? Even if they were all from the Dragon Clan, their power could not be completely compatible, let alone synchronize. However, the short-term benefits of doing this were also immeasurable. It was easy to improve one's cultivation in a short period of time. But unless one had already determined that he had no future, it was impossible to sacrifice his long-term benefits in exchange for short-term benefits. The powerful coercion of the Dragon Ball almost crushed Yi Shiwen in an instant. At the same time, the Dragon Ball continuously rushed out and poured into Aoshiba's body. Although the Dragon Ball is good, I think you are thinking too much if you want to rely on the Dragon Ball to suppress me. Yi Shiwen decisively attacked. The sword light in his hand danced, and a huge sword chi river instantly formed. It broke through the sky and blasted towards Aoshiba. Boom! A terrifying force swept out and directly hit the Dragon Ball. Then, it directly passed to Aoshiba's body. His whole body was slightly numb. The terrifying pressure that was deliberately created by the dragon pearl was also completely broken in an instant. Aoshiba was almost paralyzed. He was shocked. He did not expect that even under such circumstances, Yi Shiwen could still burst out such amazing power. He did not know that the sky-splitting sword in Yi Shiwen's hand was also a divine sword. It was not afraid of his Dragon Ball at all. In addition, his current cultivation was comparable to the Tao-confirming realm. He could fully exert the power of the sky-splitting sword. Therefore, his Dragon Ball was of no use to Yi Shiwen at all. King's Descent. Yi Shiwen let out a loud roar, and condensed all the real elemental energy in his body. His real elemental energy was raised to the peak in an instant, and then transformed into sword energy, forming a mighty star river. It suddenly broke through the vast sky, and fiercely chopped down. Boom! The sky was shattered in an instant. Yi Shiwen no longer wanted to talk nonsense with Aoshiba. He raised the power of his whole body and turned it into a full blow. Clang! The sky-splitting sword slashed on the Dragon Ball. In an instant there was no sound in the world. All gazes and lights were focused on this point. After an unknown amount of time, perhaps it was a second, perhaps it was a century, but the two powerful forces finally completely mixed together and erupted. Crack, crack! The enchantment created by the Dragon Ball was instantly shattered, as if it had suffered a terrible blow. It was completely shattered. The sky-splitting sword slashed on the Dragon Ball. An even more terrifying scene happened. A crack appeared on the Dragon Ball. Although it was only a small crack, it was terrifying enough. The Dragon Ball was the hardest part of a dragon's body. It was even harder than the scales on their body. It could almost be used as a magic tool. Now Yi Shiwen had actually slashed a crack on it. Similarly, because the Dragon Ball was very difficult to damage, once it was damaged, it would be a huge problem for the dragon race. Even Yi Shiwen was a little stunned. He had used the sky-splitting sword to slash the king's tyrannical descent, but it could only slash a small crack. The Dragon Ball was indeed the hardest part of the dragon race. In addition, it was the Dragon Ball of a 5-clawed golden dragon. It was even harder than before. But even so, it did not matter to him. He did not need to break the Dragon Ball to defeat Aoshiba. Roar! Aoshiba's face was ashen. He was completely angry and crazy. The golden dragon chi in his body was boiling. It was dazzling and murderous. How dare you? How dare you touch my Dragon Ball? Aoshiba had gone completely crazy. In order to fight against Qinlai, he had adopted this risky method to absorb the Dragon Ball of a deceased senior in his clan to quickly increase his cultivation. This method worked quickly, but the consequences were very serious. It made his already narrow future even narrower. Now Yi Shiwen had even slashed a crack on his Dragon Ball. Although it was only a crack, it represented that it was not perfect. It made it almost impossible for his future path to be perfect. Cutting off one's path to wealth was like killing one's parent. Not to mention cutting off one's future path to the Tao. It was simply impossible to wash away. Chapter 2241. One could imagine how angry Aoshiba was. The anger in his heart could not be washed away even with all the water in the heavenly river. Yi Shiwen, you will definitely die today. Aoshiba was completely mad. His eyes were red, and the dragon chi in his body was constantly condensing. Even his Dragon Ball was burning fiercely. A powerful force burst out and poured into Aoshiba's body. His entire aura became completely different in an instant. Aoshiba looked like he was undergoing a metamorphosis. The terrifying dragon chi surged out like the roar of a giant dragon. The boundless coercion swept out, giving people an unimaginably terrifying power. It was hard to imagine what kind of frightening power it would be if it were to land on a person's body. Yi Shiwen! Aoshiba roared, and his whole body flew out. He directly grabbed out with his claw, and the sky was about to collapse. Yi Shiwen's palm suddenly turned golden red, and a terrifying power surged on it to meet the dragon claw. Clang! There was a deafening sound of collision, and the aftermath of the explosion erupted. An incomparably terrifying scene occurred in an instant. Aoshiba's strength had increased by several times compared to before, and it was almost equivalent to the level that could be achieved by burning his life force. The effect of burning the Dragon Ball was almost the same. One could imagine how powerful the Dragon Ball was. Do you think this will work? It's useless. In front of my strength, everything you have is so laughable. Yi Shiwen did not care at all. Facing the explosive Aoshiba, he just constantly pinched the overturning sky seal and smashed it down. Bang! 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 He kept smashing towards Aoshiba. Aoshiba was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. It was obvious that he had exploded, but in reality, it did not look like this at all. It seemed like Yi Shiwen had exploded. What made him even more frightened was that even though he had exploded, he felt a sense of powerlessness when facing Yi Shiwen. He was completely powerless. Dragon Roar. All of a sudden, Aoshiba instilled all of his dragon chi into his dragon claw. The power of the dragon chi rampaged and shattered the void. It was as if he wanted to claw Yi Shiwen to death. It's useless. I told you that your resistance is too weak in front of my absolute strength. Your biggest mistake is that you didn't join hands with Emojingda. You might have had a chance of winning if you had joined hands. However, you have no chance of winning in front of me, Yi Shiwen said. He immediately launched a counterattack, and a sky-flipping seal smashed down. Bang! Aoshiba's claw, which had exhausted all of his dragon chi, was smashed by Yi Shiwen. Then, numerous cracks appeared on the claw, and it completely shattered in an instant, turning into energy that filled the sky. This all-out attack was easily broken by Yi Shiwen. This made Aoshiba finally sober up. He was very angry at first. He was a peerless genius of the five-clawed Golden Dragon clan, but he was actually suppressed by Yi Shiwen. However, he was not a fool. How could he not understand that Yi Shiwen had probably reached a terrifying realm? He almost immediately wanted to retreat. He did not dare to continue fighting with Yi Shiwen. The fear in his heart dominated everything, and he did not dare to go against Yi Shiwen at all. Aoshiba, aren't you proud? Didn't you never put ordinary humans in your eyes? Let me tell you, I'm just an ordinary human, but I'm going to destroy the pride of the so-called dragon race's heaven's chosen one. Yi Shiwen roared and directly chased after Aoshiba. He did not give Aoshiba the slightest chance to escape. Aoshiba was so angry that he wanted to die. He had never suffered such a big loss. Moreover, Yi Shiwen still dared to say that he was an ordinary human. If every ordinary human was so terrifying, then he, a so-called genius, would have died a long time ago. However, he did not dare to argue at this time, or rather, he did not have the time to argue at all. He knew very well that he could only retreat at this time, and then find an opportunity to kill Yi Shiwen. Although he wanted to retreat, he was not scared by Yi Shiwen. He just waited for an opportunity to kill Yi Shiwen. Such a scourge must not be allowed to continue to exist. Qin Lai alone was enough to make people depressed, not to mention that there was also Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen, what are you trying to do? Aoshiba roared loudly. What am I trying to do? You want to kill me, so I will kill you. It's that simple. Yi Shiwen directly tore the sky, making Aoshiba's self-defense counterattack completely ineffective, and all of them were blasted into the Chaos Rift. Then, his attack followed like a shadow. Almost instantly, his overturning sky seal smashed down, and an amazing divine light suddenly erupted from his hand. Bang! The overturning sky seal was covered with terrifying godly laws, directly forming a series of Tao patterns and talismans, giving him unimaginable power. This was a very powerful cultivation technique, and when cultivated to a deep level, it was not inferior to any other cultivation technique. Puff! Aoshiba spat out a mouthful of dragon blood, and his whole body smashed into the ancient weapon city like a meteor, almost smashing through the city. Such frightening strength and hand strength left everyone speechless. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. If such strength were to fall on a human body, how terrifying would it be? More importantly, such a tyrannical existence like Aoshiba was defeated so easily. He was not a match for Yi Shiwen at all. No matter how pleasant his words were, it could not change the fact that he was defeated by Yi Shiwen. I'm afraid that no one under Dao confirmation can suppress this Yi Shiwen. Yeah, I'm afraid that's true. The strongest half-step Dao confirmation existence I've seen is Aoshiba, but he is actually not a match for Yi Shiwen. How strong is he? Everyone was talking about it. They couldn't believe it at all. They probably didn't know that Yi Shiwen had already killed 2 gods. Not to mention those under Dao confirmation, even those who had reached Dao confirmation couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and chased after Aoshiba. He wanted to end Aoshiba's life. Although he also knew that it might cause the wrath of Dragon Island, he could also feel Aoshiba's murderous intention towards him. Weeds will grow again if the roots are not removed. Suddenly, he felt an incomparably tyrannical aura completely locked onto him, causing his movements to stagnate, thus allowing Aoshiba to escape and roll to the side. Aoshiba could not help but gasp, his eyes filled with shock and anger. He was thoroughly enraged, and the murderous intent in his heart intensified. He would never let Yi Shiwen go so easily. Who's there? Come out. Yi Shiwen did not care about chasing after a stray dog like Aoshiba. Instead, he looked above ancient weapon city. Just now, someone had used divine telekinesis to disturb him at the crucial moment, otherwise, how could Aoshiba have escaped? At this moment, an old man in black clothes slowly walked out of the void, looking at Yi Shiwen. This old man is this ancient weapon city's temporary city lord. If the 2 of you cause trouble here, I'm afraid it will not be good for deity transformation, Abyss, or Dragon Island's reputation. Yi Shiwen was shocked. This old man in black clothes was actually the temporary city lord of ancient weapon city, but that was not a big deal. The key point was that Yi Shiwen felt a kind of unfathomable feeling from this old man. Until now, those who could still give Yi Shiwen such a feeling, without exception, were all Dao confirmation powerhouses, and they were probably not weak among the immortal level powerhouses. Yi Shiwen had not reached that level yet, so he could not see how powerful the ancient weapon city lord was, but he could still feel this shocking degree. If you wanted to stop it, you could have done it a long time ago. Did you have to wait until I had the upper hand? Yi Shiwen said discontentedly, his tone faintly unhappy. I also did not expect that the battle would end so easily. The ancient weapon city lord laughed bitterly and said, Moreover, this kind of battle has always been happening. However, if I did not come out to stop it, Yi Shiwen, were you planning to kill Aoshiba? Yes, so what? Yi Shiwen said indifferently, not denying it. You, how arrogant! Aoshiba was shocked and angry. Yi Shiwen actually nodded in agreement without hiding it. When he thought of the trip to the gates of hell just now, his whole body felt terrible, and he felt a chill down his spine. Can I be compared to you? Yi Shiwen could not help but sneer. You want to kill me, but I can't kill you. Aoshiba was speechless. Although he indeed thought so, he could not say it. Most importantly, he was completely beaten up by Yi Shiwen like a wild dog, so he was in no position to say anything. If the 2 of you were in other places, I would not care. However, in ancient weapon city, I do not wish for any murders to occur. Otherwise, I will apply to deity transformation, Abyss and Dragon Island to cancel your qualifications to enter Tool Emperor Heaven this time. Don't think that I can't do it. Although I am only a small city lord, I can still make this decision. The ancient weapon city lord glanced at the two and said. There was a faint threat and absolute confidence in his words. In this place, even Dragon Island and Deity Transformation Abyss could not ignore his role and opinion. Alright, I will give you face. I will not say anything here. Aoshiba said while gritting his teeth. Give him face? With just you? Yishiwen sneered as if he was laughing at Aoshiba's act of trying to save face for him. However, he still stopped his pursuit of Aoshiba. Although Aoshiba was a disaster, it was not worthwhile to lose the qualification to enter the Tool Emperor Heaven just to kill him. Today I will give you face, Yishiwen said. Chapter 2242. Yishiwen glanced at Aoshiba. Killing Aoshiba was not the main issue right now. If he was chased out, it would be a huge loss. Most importantly, this ancient weapon city lord gave him an unfathomable and unimaginable feeling. Every time Weapon Emperor Heaven opened a weak spot here, it was undoubtedly a very meaningful stronghold for the various forces that had ambitions towards Weapon Emperor Heaven. However, Ancient Artifact City had been able to remain independent of the various forces for a long time. Aside from the fact that the various forces kept each other in check, the City Lord of Ancient Artifact City was also a very important reason. Only by truly controlling enough power would one have the right to speak. Both of you are willing to give this old man face. This old man is very grateful. The Ancient Weapon City Lord nodded, seemingly quite satisfied. I don't care if you fight, but I hope that before the matter of Weapon Emperor Heaven is over, there will not be any murders in Ancient Weapon City. Otherwise, it will not look good for everyone. The crowd fell silent. Facing this unfathomable Ancient Weapon City Lord, it seemed that no one wanted to challenge his authority in Ancient Weapon City. Yishiwen's gaze swept across the depths of the universe. There were many hidden tyrannical auras, faintly containing terrifying auras. The corners of his lips curled up. These old fellows really had a good plan. They probably wanted him and Aoshiba to suffer heavy injuries. This time, there were many old monsters who had lived for many years who had entered the Weapon Sovereign Heaven. Although they had yet to prove their Tao, they had many terrifying methods that they could use. Killing Aoshiba was not a big deal, but Yishiwen did not want to let them have their way. After all, after entering, there would be plenty of time. In Weapon Emperor Heaven, all the mysteries of heaven would be blocked. No one would know what had happened. Aoshiba looked at Yishiwen hatefully and disappeared into the depths of the universe. He no longer had the face to stay here. It was simply too shameful. Not only had his two subordinates been beheaded by Yishiwen, but he had also been beaten up by Yishiwen. He was sure that if the old city lord of Ancient Tool City hadn't suddenly appeared, this bastard Yishiwen would have dared to kill him. Not only Aoshiba, but also Emojingda. Yishiwen had completely slapped his face. Previously, he had wanted to embarrass Deity Transformation Abyss, but now, he was the one embarrassed. Yishiwen, I must kill you! Emojingda's eyes were bloodshot. He couldn't swallow this anger. However, they had the same thought as Yishiwen. There would be plenty of opportunities to solve this problem after they entered the Tool Emperor Heaven. The final ending came to an end with Yishiwen's complete victory. He had consecutively defeated two great experts, but he didn't show the slightest sign of decline. On the contrary, it seemed that he was still in his peak state. This had left many experts secretly speechless. No one dared to underestimate Yishiwen anymore. After all, his strength was top-notch among them. And Yishiwen had become one of the most threatening people in everyone's hearts after this battle. Yishiwen said a few words to the people of Transforming God Abyss, then left Ancient Tool City with Yiwudi. The two brothers hadn't seen each other for a long time, and they didn't want to be watched and guarded by others in Ancient Tool City. They arrived at a deserted area in the depths of the nearby universe. As soon as the two of them arrived, they began to fight with tacit understanding. They didn't give in to each other. Both of them had the intention to fight with all their strength, but they didn't try to kill each other. Thus, this battle lasted for 3 days, and it was earth-shattering. In these 3 days, both of them had gained a lot. Whether it was Yi Shiwen or Yi Wuti, both of them were well-known figures. Ordinary people couldn't compare to them. The fact that they were able to cultivate to this level with their current crushing speed meant that they were all world-shaking geniuses. None of them had advanced to this level by luck. As they fought, they comprehended and explained to each other what they had comprehended without holding anything back. Both of them suddenly saw the light, and they had a clear belief in their next step of cultivation. Their paths were different, but they were all the same. At their level, they were all masters of their generation. Things like drawing parallels and drawing inferences about other things from one instance were as easy as lifting a finger. There was no difficulty at all. The battle lasted for 3 days and 3 nights before it ended. Both of them had gained something, and they needed time to digest it. Most importantly, it was time for the Tool Emperor Heaven to open. You have to be careful. I'm afraid they won't let you go so easily. Don't underestimate them. Whether it's Dragon Island or the Finger Heaven sect, they're not ordinary people. What you can see now is only a part of their power. Once you go in, they'll definitely gather their strength to deal with you. When that time comes, don't run all over the world. Yi Wuti reminded before they parted. I'll kill as many as they come. What's there to be afraid of? Besides, no one will come to kill you even if you have such an annoying name. What's there to worry about? Yi Shiwen said with a smile. It was as if he had returned to hundreds of years ago, when they first met. That was the time when he was truly a teenager. He still looked the same, but his mentality wasn't the same. Yi Wuti rolled his eyes at Yi Shiwen and said, Don't ask me to help you when you're chased like a stray dog. Yi Shiwen shrugged and said indifferently, It's not certain who'll help who. A large hole was opened in the instrument Emperor Heaven. Many tyrannical auras extended from the distant void to maintain the operation of this large hole. This large hole would operate for 10 years before closing. This was a space opened by many unknown powerhouses. Otherwise, how could it withstand the crushing of the instrument Emperor Heaven's planar will? When a huge hole opened up in the weapon's sovereign heaven, the entire cosmos could feel a powerful pressure sweeping out. This was the place where a sovereign monarch had once attained his Tao, leaving behind the eternal and boundless pressure of a sovereign monarch. Yi Shiwen and Yi Wuti rushed back when they felt it. Many people around them were paying attention, but not many dared to go in. It was too dangerous inside. Countless wisps of precious energy rushed into the sky, bringing with them countless whistling sounds, sweeping outwards, causing people to shiver even though it wasn't cold. The aura of a peerless expert within was shocking. Ha ha, 100,000 years, 100,000 years, it's finally here. This time, I must find the real divine tool. At that time, I won't have to be afraid of anyone. But this time, there are many tyrannical existences. I'm afraid it won't be easy for us to seize the divine tool. At this time, many wills soared into the sky and flew into the huge hole in the instrument Emperor Heaven. Countless treasures rushed out from this hole. The entire instrument Emperor Heaven was like a huge balloon that was deflating. What a powerful aura! It's worthy of being called the instrument Emperor Heaven. Many people were completely shocked when they sensed the aura. Everyone knew that the more powerful a world was, the more powerful the world would be. Even if the world itself was essentially the same, it would still have a subtle influence on the aura of the entire world. As for the aura of the heavenly equipment Emperor Heaven, it was possible to sense an aura that caused people to tremble. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked. It was unimaginable how many powerful existences were hidden in it. Legend has it that those powerful deity experts don't dare to enter the instrument Emperor Heaven. In addition to the powerful suppression of the instrument Emperor Heaven itself, they also made an agreement with the tyrannical experts in the instrument Emperor Heaven. There are king-level experts there, but they don't dare to enter. Isn't the instrument Emperor Heaven too strong? Someone said in a daze. This was a legend. No one dared to confirm it. Except for deities, no one could live forever. Even for long-lived races, 100,000 years was too long. It was long enough to experience the rise and fall of a generation or even several generations. Therefore, none of these people had experienced the last opening of the instrument Emperor Heaven. They could only rely on the letters of their predecessors to judge some things. No one knew whether it was true or not, but the instrument Emperor Heaven was probably more dangerous and terrifying than everyone had imagined. Even the many geniuses who were close to the Tao confirmation or the peak of the half-step realm changed their expressions at this time. They generally had no idea how powerful the instrument Emperor Heaven was. However, they only hesitated for a moment. Then, like many of their predecessors, they rushed in one after another. Hundreds and thousands of auras rushed in group. There were also powerful experts who rushed in alone. However, the weaker ones didn't have 100% confidence in their own strength. So, they rushed in group. Even if there were many existences among them who were comparable to the Tao confirmation, they were still vulnerable compared to some of the ancient existences in the instrument Emperor Heaven. Yi Shiwen rushed in the first moment, but he didn't rush in immediately. He quietly observed from the side. These people who rushed in were all within his calculations. All of them fell into his eyes. At a glance, he understood. Although he went in a bit late, he also obtained some information about his opponent. This time, he entered the instrument Emperor Heaven. There were many dangers in the instrument Emperor Heaven, but the threat was not as big as these competitors. With the opening of the instrument Emperor Heaven, many old monsters who were originally hidden in various parts of the universe rushed out one after another. Even the old monsters who were originally hidden so well that even Yi Shiwen couldn't detect them now fell into Yi Shiwen's eyes. There were really many experts among them. Many auras were comparable to the Tao confirmation. Among them, the outstanding ones even made Yi Shiwen feel frightened to the point of just relying on their profound skills. It was unknown if they had accumulated skills for tens of thousands of years. They could crush people to death without any skills. Powerful experts rushed in one after another to seize the initiative. After Yi Shiwen confirmed that most of the experts had entered, he didn't wait any longer. Demon wings appeared behind his back. His whole body instantly turned into a golden light and rushed into the instrument Emperor Heaven. Chapter 2243. So fast. It's too fast. I didn't even have time to react, and he had already rushed in. What kind of movement technique is this? Why have I never seen it before? So fast. He is worthy of being able to defeat Ao Shiba and Emojingda. He is really extraordinary. Among the people who entered this time, he can be regarded as one of the top ones. The people behind saw Yi Shiwen's speed and suddenly felt cold sweat dripping down their back. Yi Shiwen's strength was too terrifying. With this speed alone, it was almost no difficulty for him to kill them. Yi Shiwen directly rushed into the weapon Emperor Heaven and only felt a boundless coercion. This was the suppression of the weapon Emperor Heaven against outsiders. It was like the human body would also instinctively reject foreign creatures. This was the operation of the heavenly way of the weapon Emperor Heaven. However, Yi Shiwen was not afraid at all. He directly began to operate the Celestial Emperor Tool refining technique. All the aura on his body was suddenly changed, and then all the aura on his body was changed. Then, he turned into a native creature of the weapon Emperor Heaven. He would not be suppressed by the weapon Emperor Heaven at all. He could even use the laws of the weapon Emperor Heaven to practice. It was like a dragon returning to the sea. In an instant, he got rid of the result of the suppression. At the same time, the aura on his body seemed to be completely cleansed, and there was a feeling of transformation. This was unprecedented. One must know that his gilded tyrant form was already very perfect, but in the weapon Emperor Heaven, there was a feeling of remodeling. The aura on his body was also constantly surging. The blood essence belonging to the two gods that was originally suppressed in his body was now almost unable to be suppressed and was about to rush out. He knew that he was about to cultivate to the 9th level of Paong realm. At that time, he would be the real peak of the demigod realm, and only half a step away from being a great figure. At that time, there would be a real transformation of his strength, and he would go one step further and reach an unimaginable level. And at this moment, many divine senses swept over directly. Many of them were the old monsters that Yi Shiwen had observed before. They wanted to lock on to him. Yi Shiwen is over there. We have to join forces to kill him first. We can't let him escape. We have no chance of advancing further. But he is only at the 8th level of Paong realm, and it is already so difficult to deal with him. If we let him practice to the 9th level of Paong realm, what will happen then? That's right, he must die. Although he has the support of the deification abyss behind him, it's useless. In the weapon Emperor Heaven, life and death are up to fate. No one knows what exactly happened inside. Kill him first! Yi Shiwen could sense that many tyrannical auras were rushing towards him. It was obvious that he had become the target of public criticism due to his previous battle with Mo Zhengde and Ao Shiba. Everyone wanted to eliminate him from the very beginning. With so many experts coming at him together, Yi Shiwen could only defeat one or two of them, but it was impossible to kill all of them. Moreover, in the face of these powerful auras, the level of Ao Shiba and Mo Zhengde was nothing. Although their combat power was strong, their skills were still shallow and could not keep up with the speed of Yi Shiwen's cultivation. But among these old monsters, there were many who had cultivated for 70,000 to 80,000 years, or even longer. Even if they did nothing, 70,000 to 80,000 years was enough to improve their cultivation to an unimaginable level. Yi Shiwen was confident that he would not fail, but it was also impossible for him to win. He raised the corner of his mouth and snorted coldly, "When I cultivate to the 9th level of Paong realm, you will all be waiting to die." He did not stay and fight, but directly disappeared and rushed into the depths of the weapon Emperor Heaven. After a while, there were many people standing where he was just standing. Although they did not show themselves, they knew each other's existence. It was impossible for them to show themselves at this time, so they were also on guard against each other. Damn, he actually ran away. Yi Shiwen, I will make you pay the price. Ao Shiba's figure emerged. The conflict between him and Yi Shiwen had already surfaced, so he was not afraid of anything. Beside him, there were 3 old dragons with deep and terrifying auras. It was unknown when these old dragons started cultivating, but their strength was tyrannical. They were even more powerful than Ao Shiba, but they were also very old. Each of them had white hair, but their turbid eyes would burst out bursts of light from time to time. And behind these old dragons, there were also some experts with strong and weak auras. The strong ones were even comparable to Tao confirmation, while the weak ones were demigod peak. These were either the vassals of the Dragon Island or the experts of the forces that were on good terms with the Dragon Island. As the Dragon clan used to dominate the world, the potential power was unimaginable. There were more or less hundreds of people. This was also the source of Ao Shiba's confidence. No matter how strong Yi Shiwen was, could he fight against an entire group? In his opinion, Yi Shiwen's biggest mistake was to separate from the team of Transforming God Abyss. The Transforming God Abyss was not only attended by the monkey and the others, some hidden old monsters also wanted to try their luck. At this time, they had also gathered together. But Yi Shiwen was not with them. Being alone was equivalent to courting death. Not to mention Yi Shiwen, Aoshiba himself was also the target of many people in the dark. It wasn't only because of the competition between the Tool Emperor Heaven. There were many hostile forces either in the open or in the dark. Some of them personally went into battle, and some even hired people to kill the geniuses and heroes of their opponent. However, the Dragon Island was powerful. With so many experts, how many people had the guts to attack them? That was equivalent to courting death. If we let him break through to the 9th level of Paong realm, then it will be really troublesome, an old dragon said faintly. When that time comes, I'm afraid we will not be his match. This time, I must let him die without a burial place. This time, I will absorb all the power in the Dragon Ball in one breath. I want to prove my Tao in the Weapon Emperor Heaven. By then, even if he enters the 9th level of Paong realm, so what? I can pinch him to death with a flip of my hand. Aoshiba's eyes were red. He had already been completely infuriated by Yi Shiwen. There was no possibility of reconciliation between the two sides. He had been forced into a dead end by Yi Shiwen. There was no other possibility. Now that you have swallowed the Dragon Ball, it will be impossible for you to go further in the future. The Dragon Ball is an existence that our Dragon Clan is born to continuously accumulate. It is even more precious than a life instrument. You are destroying your own future. An old dragon could not help but advise, do you really want to do this? If you want to deal with him, there is no need at all. If our Dragon Island really wants to deal with him, even if he has the support of transforming God Abyss, it is not impossible to find an opportunity. It is such a pity. I must kill him. I have never suffered such a great humiliation. Even Qin Lai did not give me such a great humiliation. If I can't kill him, I will not be able to cultivate properly in the future. Moreover, it is not that there is no other way without the Dragon Ball. Aoshiba said with a gloomy face, before I came, the old ancestor once said that our Dragon Island had buried a backup in the Weapon Emperor Heaven. There was once a demon beast in the Weapon Emperor Heaven that was subdued by our Dragon Clan. He should have proven his Tao now. It is time to activate this backup. Let's go find him and let him get rid of Yi Shiwen. Aoshiba and the others instantly disappeared into the void. After failing to find Yi Shiwen, these gathered experts also dispersed one after another. At this time, although Yi Shiwen did not know Aoshiba's plan, he did not care. As long as he went further, all these were fleeting clouds. He directly plunged into the depths of the Weapon Emperor Heaven. In the depths of the Weapon Emperor Heaven, there were also many treasure demons that were born from treasure aura. The bodies of these treasure demons were the best materials for refining tools. He directly took out the Devil Beckoning Banner. He wanted to use the right time and place in the Weapon Emperor Heaven to truly refine the Devil Beckoning Banner into a divine tool. He wanted to transform it into a divine tool again and put his own imprint on it. There was also Tianyuan Mirror. This was Yi Shiwen's current plan, because these two were originally divine tools. However, due to various reasons, they had become defective divine tools. Moreover, Tianyuan Mirror's damage was even more serious. When it first met Yi Shiwen, it did not even have a 10,000th of its power. In the sky, waves of treasure aura blew over. It was like a bone-scraping steel knife, directly scraping Yi Shiwen's body. It was enough to blow an ordinary mysterious realm expert to death. And Yi Shiwen, who was constantly operating the Celestial Emperor tool refining technique, was like a fish in water in such an environment. He could collect these treasure auras and then use them. As if it had sensed Yi Shiwen's existence, an incomparably powerful treasure demon appeared. This treasure demon had transformed into the appearance of a fierce tiger. A dull roar came from afar. The sound was dull, and it was accompanied by bursts of killing sounds. It was extremely terrifying. This terrifying aura even faintly affected Yi Shiwen. he had encountered such a powerful treasure demon as soon as he entered the weapon Emperor Heaven. This made Yi Shiwen faintly excited. He wanted to restore the Devil Beckoning Banner and Tianyuan Mirror to the level of a divine tool. However, he needed innumerable treasure auras and refining materials. The Devil Beckoning Banner was only damaged. However, Tianyuan Mirror had completely declined. Yi Shiwen looked over and saw a huge tiger. Its whole body was emitting a terrifying aura. It was walking step by step towards him. It seemed as if it could devour the world. What the hell is this treasure demon made of? It has such power. As the saying goes, the clouds follow the dragons and the wind follows the tigers. This fierce tiger's body was also emitting a strong wind-attributed aura. This was a tyrannical treasure demon. An ordinary demigod peak expert would be swallowed by it. Roar! This ferocious tiger let out a powerful roar, and the entire world trembled. Countless afterimages appeared in the void. This ferocious tiger turned into a gust of wind and pounced towards Yi Shiwen. Its speed was so fast that it left afterimages behind. Chapter 2244. However, no matter how fast it was no match for Yi Shiwen's speed. Yi Shiwen reacted almost instantaneously. He directly pinched the overturning sky seal in his hand and confronted the tiger. Bang! Yi Shiwen directly blocked the tiger's attack. Both sides burst into sparks, and the sparks turned into divine rays that burst out directly, sweeping into a storm of divine rays. Both sides were like two divine weapons clashing against each other. Yi Shiwen faintly felt a sharp pain in his hand. He was a little surprised. With his current tyrant body, there was actually someone who could make him feel pain. Although it had not broken through his defense, it was already extremely amazing. However, although he was surprised, the speed of his hand did not slow down at all. The space-breaking sword appeared in his other hand, and a huge sword river slashed down. Shwa! In the next instant, the ferocious tiger had already appeared in an extremely distant place, dodging the attack. Its speed was very fast, even faster than anyone Yi Shiwen had seen before. Although it could not hurt him, it was not a solution to let it keep running away. Demon Summoning Banner. Yi Shiwen directly waved his hands, and the Demon Summoning Banner covered the sky and the earth, sealing the space, and smashed down towards the tiger, not giving it any room to resist, and directly besieged it. The tiger roared, and the endless wind attribute energy around it directly swept out. It had extremely sharp characteristics, and directly broke the control of the Demon Summoning Banner. Yi Shiwen was a little stunned. Even the Demon Summoning Banner could not control this tiger. What was the origin of this tiger? However, it did not matter to him. Taking advantage of this time, while the tiger was distracted by the Demon Summoning Banner, he stepped out and directly rushed to the front of the tiger. His hands turned over, and turned into the overturning sky seal, smashing down. Boom! A huge mushroom cloud slowly rose up. A terrifying power was generated, and then it wreaked havoc on the tiger's body. Roar! Like a cannonball, fierce tiger was directly smashed to the ground. A terrifying force directly scraped off a layer of the surrounding disciples. It should be said that a layer of disciples was evaporated. It was very terrifying. This was Yi Shiwen's current hand speed. The tiger constantly screamed, seriously injured. Yi Shiwen's overturning sky seal was not easy to deal with. Roar! 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 This ferocious tiger roared unceasingly. It had never expected that Yi Shiwen would be so powerful. Moreover, Yi Shiwen's strength was even more terrifying. He could even injure its body. Yi Shiwen's next attack followed like a shadow. Another overturning sky seal smashed down. Bang! He just wanted to get up and continue to fight, but he was slapped down by Yi Shiwen. The entire overturning the sky seal directly smashed half of his head. If it was an ordinary god, he would have died, But he was not an ordinary creature after all. His head was healing rapidly, but his entire body looked a little more transparent and dimmer. It was obvious that he had been heavily injured. Bang! 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 This ferocious tiger continued to roar, trying to break free from Yi Shiwen's hand, but it was useless. In front of Yi Shiwen, he was still too weak. He was not an opponent at all. He was constantly being smashed down. Yi Shiwen was like a tiger hero at this time, riding on this ferocious tiger's body. He constantly punched, and the power of each punch that could penetrate the stars completely fell on the body of this ferocious tiger. Roar, damn human, how can I die? This ferocious tiger roared, and his whole body was shrinking, and then turned into a paperweight. A tiger-shaped paperweight directly pressed down on Yi Shiwen. Suddenly, he only felt that the whole world was under the suppression of this paperweight. The word paperweight had been learned to an unimaginable degree. The ferocious tiger that turned into a paperweight was still grinning, as if it could see Yi Shiwen being crushed to death. This was the first time that Yi Shiwen had a clear look at this thing. It turned out to be a divine tool-level paperweight. However, it was also incomplete. It was unknown how many years had passed, but it had taken the form of a tiger-shaped tool spirit. You only have this kind of power? If you want to fight against me, you are still far from it. Yi Shiwen suddenly burst out, and the blood in his body surged up. The cutting space sword in his hand chopped down. Bang! This paperweight artifact was directly chopped into pieces by Yi Shiwen's cutting space sword. Although both were divine-level artifacts, the cutting space sword was much more powerful than the paperweight artifact. Not to mention, it was an incomplete divine tool. Yi Shiwen did not hesitate, and directly let Tianyuan Mirror swallow the fragment of this paperweight artifact. The effect was outstanding and immediate. Tianyuan Mirror almost immediately burst out a strong multicolored light, and in one breath, it directly returned to the level of a pseudo-divine level artifact. It itself was a divine level artifact, so the principles and realm were not a problem for it. The only thing it lacked was enough energy. This paperweight artifact had evolved into a spirit for many years, and its power had been completely absorbed by Tianyuan Mirror. Yi Shiwen was overjoyed. Sure enough, as he expected, Tianyuan Mirror was now his life-bonded divine tool. The more powerful Tianyuan Mirror was, the more powerful his strength would be. When the time came, he would not have to worry even if he encountered a powerhouse in the Tao confirming stage. After this precedent, he immediately no longer hesitated, and directly went towards the depths of the Tool Emperor Heaven. The Tool Emperor Heaven was really too big, unimaginably big. It was densely covered with stars, and no one knew how many treasured demons there were. If outsiders knew that Yi Shiwen had actually fed a defective divine tool to his own life-bonded divine tool, it was estimated that they would spit out a mouthful of blood. Many of these people who came in were still using pseudo-divine level artifact. They had not even seen what a defective divine tool looked like, but Yi Shiwen had fed all of them to Tianyuan Mirror. For him, he had done a lot of squandering things. As long as Tianyuan Mirror could become a divine tool again, everything would be worth it. He continued to kill in the depths of the Tool Emperor Heaven. It had to be said that the Tool Emperor Heaven was a divine nation established by the Tool Emperor. It was an unimaginable existence. In the next year, he killed those treasured demons everywhere in the depths of the Tool Emperor Heaven. Most of the treasured demons were demigods, and some were even weaker than demigods. Among them, there was no lack of treasured demons comparable to Tao confirming level. These treasured demons could also erupt with strength comparable to Tao confirming level by relying on the advantage of being a divine tool. However, the opponents they encountered were Yi Shiwen, and they were simply not his opponent. One by one, they were beheaded and refined by him. As he beheaded more and more treasured demons, Tianyuan Mirror recovered more and more power. He could feel that his body was faintly becoming more powerful. Since he had turned Tianyuan Mirror into a life-bonded divine tool, he could feel that Tianyuan Mirror was closely related to his own strength, but he had not been able to find an opportunity before. Moreover, Tianyuan Mirror's appetite was also astonishing. In more than a year, Yi Shiwen had beheaded hundreds of treasured demons of the pseudo-divine tool level. Moreover, he had killed more than 10 treasured demons that were comparable to Tao-confirming level divine tools. Not to mention, there were countless divine tools below the demigod level. Even so, Tianyuan Mirror was only getting stronger. It seemed that it was far from reaching its peak. It was still at the level of a pseudo-divine tool. It was still one step away from becoming a real divine tool. It was this one step away that made him helpless. If so many resources were used on the devil summoning banner, it would have already become a divine tool. However, there were naturally benefits in investing too much. He could feel that once Tianyuan Mirror was completely refined, its power would be far superior to the devil summoning banner. In fact, it would be far superior to any of the divine tools on his body. This was also the reason why he was willing to invest so much in it. In more than a year, it was impossible for him to not make any progress. He was also constantly refining the blood essence of the two gods in preparation for entering the 9th level of Paong realm. Basically, he had been making preparations in advance. After more than a year of preparation, he was finally ready to break through to the 9th level of the Paong realm. This was very difficult for other outsiders. They didn't belong to this world. Naturally, they were like bright lights in the dark night. Even if they didn't do anything, many treasured demons would come knocking on their door. However, Yi Shiwen was different. As long as he didn't want to, no treasured demon would be able to detect his aura. Whenever he operated the Celestial Emperor Tool refining technique, his aura would be like a fish in the water. He directly found a cave, arranged a formation array, and began his closed-door training. He sat cross-legged on the ground. Countless blood essence and energy rushed out of his body. This was the power of the two gods. Yi Shiwen had been absorbing the power of the blood essence of the two gods for more than a year. However, he didn't have enough time. Therefore, he hadn't been able to properly refine the power of the blood essence. Now he finally had the time. Anyway, there was still a long time before the closure of the Tool Emperor Heaven. The blood in his body was constantly surging. A powerful force was impacting his limbs and bones. His understanding of the realm was also constantly improving. He constantly burned the bloodstone ore and poured it into the mysterious space in his body. This increased his understanding of the realm, so that he truly had the strength foundation to attack the 9th level of Paong realm. A day in the mountain was equivalent to 1,000 years in the world. This was the best portrayal of a cultivator. Yi Shiwen just wanted to do a little closed-door training to attack the 9th level of Paong realm. It took him a full 5 years. In the blink of an eye, it had been a full 6 years since he entered the Tool Emperor Heaven. The time of the opening of the Tool Emperor Heaven was more than half. Many people had already found a lot of treasures in the Tool Emperor Heaven. Some people even said that they had found a divine tool and subdued it. This caused a sensation in the world. Chapter 2245. God artifacts were unimaginably attractive to peak demigods. If a god artifact could produce an artifact spirit, it would naturally be able to break through to the doctrine realm after a long period of time. If one could have an artifact, it would naturally be said that their strength would increase greatly. However, it was not easy to subdue an artifact. Even if there was an incomplete artifact, it was still very difficult to subdue it. Therefore, although there were people who had subdued incomplete artifacts, there were not many real artifacts. Relatively speaking, they were just rare. Yi Shiwen was in closed-door training, but he still had a wisp of divine sense incarnation outside. Therefore, these news couldn't be hidden from him and fell into his ears. This divine incarnation was also walking in the equipment Emperor Heaven, exploring the dangerous forbidden areas while inquiring about the whereabouts of Ao Shiba, Emojingda, and the others. When he came out, he would solve these two troubles in one fell swoop. However, whether it was Ao Shiba or Emojingda, they seemed to have disappeared. Yi Shiwen did not know where they went. It was too difficult to find them with only a divine incarnation. However, he was not in a hurry. He was now constantly breaking through to the 9th level of Paong realm. As long as he could succeed, no matter what the other party's tricks were, it would be useless. In the face of absolute strength, tricks were too childish. He had reached the most critical juncture and was making the final sprint to break through to the 9th level of Paong realm. With his cultivation, breaking through to the 9th level of Paong realm was only a matter of minutes. It would not take 9 years at all. However, not only did he want to break through to the 9th level of Paong realm, but he also wanted to make his combat power comparable to the middle stage of the immortal level. This was not something that could be achieved by ordinary means. In the vast and boundless weapon sovereign heaven, a snow-white figure was harvesting like a hot knife through butter. One treasure demon after another was completely destroyed by him and absorbed by him on the spot. This young man was expressionless. If Yi Shiwen was here, he would be immediately shocked. It was actually also the Celestial Emperor weapon refining technique. After a long time, the young man spoke. After the Equipment Emperor Heaven closed, we, as the true descendants of the Equipment Emperor, could not enter. Every time, we have to take advantage of this once in 100,000 years opportunity to come in and harvest. It's the same for those people. This young man was actually the true successor of the Weapon Emperor. However, now that the Weapon Emperor Heaven was closed, no one could enter. Even if they were the true successors of the Weapon Emperor, it was the same. However, this time, I will put an end to this situation. I want to obtain the true inheritance of the Weapon Emperor. At that time, the entire Weapon Emperor Heaven will be under my control. Those fellows who came to take advantage of me can forget about leaving. The master of the Weapon Emperor Heaven can only be me, Zhuahong. Do they think that I don't know that these fellows also came for the inheritance of the Weapon Emperor? However, how can they compare to me, the true successor of the Weapon Emperor? The young man's expression was extremely cold. Ao Shiba, Qin Lai Yiwudi Yi Shiwen, Emojingda Yang Wanshu. The young man spat out these names one by one. All of them were top-notch geniuses of the younger generation. Although he was speaking, the movements of his hands weren't slow in the slightest. He grabbed a large number of treasured demons and killed them. He wasn't like Yi Shiwen, who used the treasured qi of the Tool Emperor Heaven to refine his divine tool. Instead, he used it to temper himself. Many treasure demons screamed as they were refined by the Celestial Emperor Tool refining art. Their skills were digested, and their bodies were directly taken away by Zhuahong. Many treasure demons screamed as they were refined by the Celestial Emperor Tool refining art. Their skills were digested, and their bodies were taken away by Zhuahong. It was hard to imagine the good things inside the treasure qi. This treasure qi adhered to the stones and formed gems. These gems were the best materials for tool refining. As long as a little bit was added, the success rate of tool refining would be greatly increased. In the aspect of tool refining, no one could be compared with the Weapon Emperor since ancient times. He was the only supreme existence who had achieved success through tool refining. At this time, Yi Shiwen had also reached the most critical moment. He could absorb a large amount of treasure energy with every breath he took. And every breath he took was like a tidal wave. All of the treasure energy was transformed and absorbed into his body. This treasure energy wasn't just simple energy. It also contained countless traces of truth hidden within it. If people were to cultivate here for a long time, they would be able to absorb the treasure qi. Not only would their cultivation speed increase, but they would also be affected by the principles contained in the treasure chi. It could be said that this was a method to directly connect with the god. No wonder there were countless experts in the weapon Emperor Heaven. The environment here was even comparable to the transforming god Abyss. However, this place contained the great Tao of tool refining. However, the transforming god Abyss was a place where countless gods had joined hands to manifest the great Tao. Then, they would grab the great Tao and forcibly comprehend it. However, the tool Emperor Heaven was everywhere. It had a vast territory. It was countless times larger than the transforming god Abyss. Yi Shiwen had never seen such a huge world. Even the divine nations transformed by the gods, like the Death Lord's Abyss of Death, were nothing compared to the tool Emperor Heaven. They were simply not on the same level. Therefore, the weapon Emperor Heaven was the weapon Emperor Heaven, not the weapon Emperor's world. The heavens in the myriad heavens and realms referred to this incomparably huge world. It was impossible for ordinary people to open up such a huge world. Even the supreme experts among the gods could not open up such a huge world into their own divine kingdom because they did not have enough divine power. The great Tao here was subtly influencing these treasure demons, making them form their own cultivation system. It was very amazing. This was when the weapon Emperor was not here. If the weapon Emperor was here, how grand would it be? Yi Shiwen seemed to have seen the tip of the iceberg of the power of the Emperor-level powerhouses. And Yi Shiwen was now also enjoying the benefit. With the Celestial Emperor tool refining technique, he could not only conceal his aura, but also use the treasure chi to cultivate. He did not have to worry about being rejected by the weapon Emperor's heavenly Tao. Yi Shiwen did not put much effort into cultivating the Celestial Emperor tool refining technique before. It was more of an auxiliary cultivation technique for tool refining. Now that he had really started to cultivate, coupled with the fact that his realm was many times more tyrannical than when he had just obtained it, he realized how wrong he was in the beginning. This in itself was a kind of unimaginably supreme cultivation technique. Among the god-level martial arts that he had obtained, most of them were magical power moves. On the contrary, real cultivation techniques were very rare. They contained countless truths of the great Tao. The more he cultivated, the more he could feel the unimaginably profound existence in them. Yi Shiwen even had an impulse to abandon his cultivation and recultivate. It almost affected his Tao heart. However, he still calmed down and did not abandon his cultivation and recultivate. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. But even so, he could almost feel that his observing person scripture had greatly improved while cultivating the Celestial Emperor tool refining technique and confirming his own great Tao. His body had already formed a huge universe. Countless stars were twinkling around him. At this time, his whole body was entrenched in the center of the universe. He was the only true God in the universe. Waves of treasure chi were refined by him. Within a radius of thousands of miles, one could feel the tide of treasure chi surging. Many treasure demons were trembling and lying on the ground. They could not sense Yi Shiwen's aura. However, just his breath could stir the tide of treasure chi for thousands of miles. One could imagine what kind of terrifying existence was in the middle of it. After a long time, his whole body suddenly opened all of a sudden. Almost in an instant, a tyrannical power rushed out of his body. His chi and blood surged like the sea washing everything. There was a thunderous sound and a rumbling sound. He looked up to the sky and let out a long roar. He had finally reached the 9th level of Paong realm. Ha 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 ha! Yi Shiwen was extremely carefree. He had finally cultivated to the peak of demigod. This was the last realm of demigod. Although his combat power was already comparable to that of Tao validation, his realm was too low. Most of the time, he was at a disadvantage. More importantly, because of this, His combat power directly rushed to the middle of the immortality realm, and he was not weak at all. His cultivation still needed some time to reach the peak of the 9th level of Pawang realm. However, it was just a matter of time. He had already made up his mind that when he went out, he must retreat in the deity transformation abyss and directly rush to Tao validation to become a god. It was not comparable to Tao validation. Comparable to Tao validation was not Tao validation. His whole body was undergoing a kind of transformation. There was a continuous crackling sound. Yi Shiwen felt that his whole body was constantly squirming and his qi and blood were surging. After a long time, he finally stopped and completely stabilized the 9th level of Pawang realm. He directly grabbed with his big hand. The void was torn by his grasp. Many of the treasure demons hiding in the void were caught in his hand. Weren't you just peeping at me and coveting my qi and blood? Yi Shiwen could not help but sneer. He had already discovered the existence of these treasure demons. It was just that he was at the most critical moment of breaking through, so he was too lazy to care about them. These treasure demons were also sensible, and did not disturb him at the most critical moment of breaking through, which allowed them to live for a while longer. How is it possible? How can he be so strong? Impossible. Didn't he just cultivate to the peak of demigod? He is just a very weak human. How can he be so terrifying? I don't believe it, I want to break free. These treasure demons roared in horror. They were almost caught by Yi Shiwen in an instant and did not have the strength to fight back. There were even some treasure demons who were comparable to Tao validation level. They were very tyrannical. Even in the Tool Emperor Heaven, they were small nobles. As long as they did not provoke the existence that was difficult to provoke, they would not die. Who would have thought that they would be caught by Yi Shiwen in an instant? Bang! They screamed as they were grabbed to death by Yi Shiwen. The heavenly source mirror had absorbed their inexhaustible treasured energies along with their bodies. Rumble! Countless tribulation clouds had gathered in the sky at some point in time. Chapter 2246. These tribulation clouds carried an unprecedented tyrannical coercion which directly pressed down on Yi Shiwen's heart. This was a divine tribulation. Gods were a kind of realm. It was also a transformation of the essence of life. Whether it was a person or an object, if they wanted to advance to this level, they would have to withstand such a terrifying divine tribulation. Just like a living creature, there were not many divine tools that could be promoted to divine tools. Therefore, divine tools were very rare. Even if there were some divine tools, they would be in the hands of God. Experts below the level of gods who possessed divine tools were as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Tianyuan mirror suddenly flew out of Yi Shiwen's body. The simple and unadorned surface of the mirror erupted with bursts of blood-red light, which illuminated everything in the world. The surrounding space of thousands of miles was illuminated into a sea of blood. In the distance, countless treasure demons were rolling and crawling away. They didn't dare to approach. What a joke! If they were implicated by the divine tribulation, then they would be finished. Therefore, Yi Shiwen was the only one standing in this god's retribution within thousands of miles. This god's retribution faintly gave him a very strong sense of danger. If there was a god here, perhaps his eyeballs would have popped out. He would have been scared out of his wits. This kind of divine tribulation was far from being comparable to an ordinary divine tribulation. Tianyuan mirror itself was very special. It had once reached an unimaginable realm. Although Yemo was not here now, but it was not an ordinary divine tribulation. Voila! A terrifying thunder and lightning directly struck down. Yi Shiwen's eyes were sharp. He could see at a glance that this was not a thunder and lightning. It was clearly a group of thunder and lightning principles that had struck down in the form of thunder and lightning. Yi Shiwen's heart couldn't help but tremble. This divine tribulation was too terrifying. It used all the principles to directly attack the essence. This was the most terrifying method. Now that Yi Mo was not here, Yi Shiwen could only take care of this divine tribulation. Under his control, Tianyuan Mirror erupted with countless blood-red lights. Lines of law lines emerged on its surface. They formed a blood-red torrent and rushed towards that group of thunder and lightning principles. Boom! A huge explosion sound was heard. A terrifying aura swept out. The surging energy shock waves swept out like the waves of the sea. However, what was truly frightening wasn't this. What was truly frightening was the fact that hundreds of such terrifying lightning nomological laws had appeared in the sky. However, Tianyuan Mirror's method of crossing the tribulation was also very fierce. Almost in an instant, it turned into a peerless great devil. It opened its bloody mouth on the spot and swallowed the hundreds of terrifying lightning laws. If others were to see this, they would be scared to death. This lightning rule was enough to kill a demigod. How terrifying would it be when hundreds of lightning rules were stacked together? Yet, it was devoured by him in one gulp. Of course, ordinary divine tribulations would not be this terrifying. Yi Shiwen was extraordinary, and Tianyuan Mirror was the magic tool of the Devil King in those days. As for the heavenly tribulation up in the sky, it seemed as though it had been enraged as it came down even more frenziedly. Over 1,000 lightning laws smashed down, turning into a series of terrifying figures. There were godly beasts, as well as ridiculously powerful figures. All of them attacked Gu Lai. At this moment, the ground had already started to gush with countless amounts of yellowish water. Underworld water. Yi Shiwen recognized it immediately. The underworld water was gushing out from the ground, and it was spreading at an alarming speed. It seemed as if it would drown Yi Shiwen and Tianyuan Mirror. Soon, it had rushed to Yi Shiwen's feet. He immediately felt a kind of pain. The place that was submerged by the underworld water was making a sizzling sound. He was shocked. The water of the yellow spring could even hurt his physical body. If an ordinary peak demigod, even if it was comparable to a Tao-confirming expert, touched by the water of the yellow spring, he would probably be melted into a puddle of blood in a short period of time. However, Yi Shiwen couldn't care so much at this time. He directly radiated divinity to protect himself, and wrapped himself in the demon summoning banner. Then, he suddenly flew into the air, and began to help Tianyuan Mirror in the battle. These thousands of powerful lightning laws had yet to finish bombarding. More lightning laws smashed down, and Yi Shiwen could only try his best to help Tianyuan Mirror. Human Dao Fist. He blasted out a punch and directly smashed a lightning law. However, he could almost feel that his arm was faintly numb. He couldn't imagine how terrifying it was. These lightning laws rushed into Tianyuan Mirror. At this time, Tianyuan Mirror was also getting stronger as it fought. It didn't care about anything at all. It opened its bloody mouth and swallowed mouthful by mouthful. The lightning laws that smashed on its body were useless. They couldn't shake it at all. Yi Shiwen wasn't worried. Tianyuan Mirror was not the strongest among his many instruments, but it was the strongest. So far, he hadn't encountered an existence that could hurt Tianyuan Mirror. This also made him even more in awe. Such a terrifying Tianyuan Mirror. What kind of damage did it encounter in the past that caused it to fall to such a realm? This was unimaginable. Tianyuan Mirror swallowed the lightning laws in big mouthfuls. From time to time, it would transform into a demon hand and grab the lightning laws in the sky. It seemed that it was not fast enough. Yi Shiwen couldn't keep up with such a fierce way of crossing the tribulation. After all, his body was still inferior to Tianyuan Mirror. More importantly, Yi Shiwen could faintly feel that a looming willpower was faintly emerging from Tianyuan Mirror. He immediately reacted and realized that Tianyuan Mirror had once again given birth to a new tool spirit. With Yi Mo's departure, although he didn't completely cut off the connection with Tianyuan Mirror, He had indeed been reborn with another identity. It was impossible to come back to Tianyuan Mirror as a tool spirit. At this time, it was also a matter of course for a new tool spirit to be born. This was a tool spirit born under his cultivation. Naturally, it would be completely loyal to him. He didn't have to worry about erasing the tool spirit like the emergence immortal exterminating saber in the past. This was a completely different thing. He was overjoyed. If there was a tool spirit, Tianyuan Mirror could exert far more power than it was now. His divine sense could directly feel the weak and still semi-ignorant tool spirit of Tianyuan Mirror. The two sides were automatically connected as if there was a blood connection. After the birth of this tool spirit, Tianyuan Mirror became even more ferocious. Not only the heavenly tribulation couldn't do anything to it, but it also directly absorbed the yellow spring water into Tianyuan Mirror, forming a surging yellow spring river inside Tianyuan Mirror. This level of yellow spring water could even melt the gods. Yi Shiwen didn't dare to stay in it. One could imagine how terrifying it was. Now that Tianyuan Mirror had absorbed all of it in one breath, it could be used to deal with opponents. Even if it was a god, it could be directly killed. Yi Shiwen was incomparably happy to have another trump card. Moreover, some of the lightning laws absorbed by him were used by Tianyuan Mirror to temper itself. Some were actually stored by him and transformed into a talisman. When he directly threw it out, it would be a god's retribution level of thunder and lightning. One of it could make a god suffer a lot. Its power was infinite. Even he was amazed. Tianyuan Mirror was really getting more and more ferocious. Even heaven's retribution couldn't do anything to it. It even gave it a new attack method. In the sky, the thunder tribulation was getting less and less. Yi Shiwen knew that the thunder tribulation of Tianyuan Mirror had finally passed. Sure enough, not long after, a monstrous aura instantly swept out from Tianyuan Mirror and a mighty divine power swept out. This was the symbol of the complete transformation of the mirror into a divine tool. Divine power, like the coercion of a god, swept out in all directions. In the distance, countless treasure monsters knelt in worship. They were different from the people outside. They themselves were transformed from divine tools. Therefore, for them, Tianyuan Mirror was the real proof of Tao. In Tool Emperor Heaven, there was one more supreme existence that had confirmed Tao. His figure was vast and mighty. Shock waves burst out from his body, forming many talismans that spread out. Yi Shiwen waved his hand and Tianyuan Mirror flew into his hand. There was a faint feeling of intimacy. He knew that this was the effect of the tool spirit formed in Tianyuan Mirror. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to be so intimate. He had already stepped into the peak of demigod. With Tianyuan Mirror, there was nothing to be afraid of in the middle stage of the immortality realm. When he accumulated enough power, it would be enough to sweep away the entire middle stage of the immortality realm. Tianyuan Mirror had always felt like a chicken rib in his hand. It was not that Tianyuan Mirror was not powerful enough, but rather, it was damaged too seriously, and to repair it would consume many times more resources than other instruments of the same level. Even a big prodigal like Yi Shiwen would feel a toothache when it came to repairing it. On the contrary, it did not have much effect in a frontal battle. Now, Tianyuan Mirror had broken into the divine tool level with the help of the special environment in Tool Emperor Heaven. Its power had greatly increased. It was not inferior to anyone. Its power had greatly increased, and it had become one of Yi Shiwen's trump cards. Compared to a few years ago, the current Yi Shiwen could be said to have greatly increased his strength. The next step was to let the demon summoning flag become a divine tool. By then, he would have 3 complete divine tools in his hand. For a demigod, such wealth was very shocking. Ordinary gods would only have one because the price of godhood to become a divine tool was too high. It would be better to strengthen the life magic tool with these resources. If it was not in Tool Emperor Heaven, Yi Shiwen would not be so extravagant. Yi Shiwen immediately flew into the depths of Tool Emperor Heaven without hesitation. He did not hide his aura. He constantly looked for those tyrannical treasure demons, killed them, and plundered their bodies, refining them into the demon summoning flag. This process went on for a year. Demon summoning flag also ushered in its own god's test. Although it was also very big, it was nothing compared to the god's test that Tianyuan mirror had to face. With Yi Shiwen's help, it successfully upgraded into a divine tool. In this year, Yi Shiwen did not hide his aura, and it had completely stirred up many people. Chapter 2247. Yi Shiwen's whereabouts was a target that many people wanted to find. Whether it was to kill this genius or to seize all his wealth, it could be said that he must be killed. In particular, Yi Shiwen was alone and did not act with the deity transformation Abyss team. This was his biggest mistake. However, the Tool Emperor Heaven was vast and boundless. It was much bigger than any other world. So, it was very difficult to find a person who had the intention to hide. Moreover, Yi Shiwen had used the Celestial Emperor tool, refining art, to conceal his figure. So, no one could find his whereabouts. So in the past 6 years, no one knew where Yi Shiwen was. But in this year, Yi Shiwen suddenly appeared. Although he appeared everywhere from time to time, it still made countless people excited. In the hearts of many people, Yi Shiwen was also a real target to be killed. Yi Shiwen was also very clear about this. However, he had been waiting for Mo Zhengde and Ao Shiba. He must get rid of future troubles in the Tool Emperor Heaven. Otherwise, he didn't know how much trouble they would cause. After he successfully promoted the Demon Summoning Banner to a divine tool, the power of the Demon Summoning Banner increased greatly. However, he was still constantly looking for some divine tools. It would be best if he could directly subdue the divine tools. However, maybe his luck was not very good. Although he encountered a few defective divine tools, they were not divine tools. Defective divine tools were stronger than pseudo-divine tools, but they were not real divine tools after all. But he was not in a hurry because he knew very well that the real big fish was still behind. There was a treasure house in the depths of the Equipment Emperor Heaven. The treasure house would spit out countless divine tools at a certain time to repair the holes in the Equipment Emperor Heaven. At that time, it would be a real harvest. That would also be the last year. There were still a few years left. His main goal was still there. Therefore, he was also looking for the divine tools if he could find them. It did not matter if he could not find them. More importantly, he was looking for Ao Shiba and Mo Zhengde to eliminate future troubles. As he searched, he headed toward the treasure house of the Equipment Emperor Heaven. He had to go now because the Equipment Emperor Heaven was too vast. Even with his speed, if he did not enter as soon as possible, he might not be able to catch up. Moreover, Yi Shiwen did not believe that Mo Zhengde and Ao Shiba would let go of the last treasure house to spit out divine tools. At that time, they would definitely gather in the treasure house and kill them. He had just left not long ago. An incomparably tyrannical aura descended. It was a middle-aged man with fluffy golden hair all over his body. Nobody knew what race he was from. He had a pair of wings on his back and looked extremely strong. Behind him, dozens of silhouettes descended. A few of them were comparable to Tao validation cultivators, while the rest were demigods with extremely profound cultivation. These were all old monsters who had cultivated for God knows how many years. Their auras were incomparably tyrannical. I've finally tracked this Yi Shiwen. He has been hiding like a mouse for a year. Someone behind this golden-haired, middle-aged man said. He had been chasing Yi Shiwen's whereabouts for the past year. So, his heart was naturally filled with incomparable resentment. That's right. However, no matter how cunning a fox is, it can't beat a good hunter. Didn't we catch up with him now? Humph, this time, we'll make him die without a burial place. Someone said disdainfully. But should we inform Aoshiba and the others? You must know that they have paid a great price to capture this Yishiwen. Someone looked at the golden-haired middle-aged man and said, "There's no need. Why should we inform them? Do we need to covet their rewards? Compared to the rewards given by Dragon Island and Covering Heaven sect, what's more important is that we must plunder all of Yishiwen's fortuitous encounters. He is so powerful, so he must have inherited great luck. If we can kill him, plunder his luck, and plunder his fortuitous encounters, then we can rely on this great luck to prove our Tao. Isn't that good?" The golden-haired middle-aged man said faintly, "We have been practicing hard for tens of thousands of years. Why are we always stuck at this checkpoint, watching those juniors surpass us one by one? In terms of talent, we were all famous heroes in the past. In terms of cultivation techniques, many of us are not bad either. However, we lack a little bit of luck, causing us to fall short of success. Although I am comparable to Tao confirmation, in the end, I am not a Tao confirmation expert. This is our last chance. If we still can't grasp it, we will have no other way out except to turn into a cup of soil. Don't forget, we are about to enter the angel decay stage 5. At that time, even God can't save us. We can only fight to the death." "That's right. My fate is not up to the heavens. We can only fight to the death." Compared to Tao confirmation, the Emperor's treasure house is not important. We need to be alive to enjoy all the good things. Yes, that's it. Kill Yishiwen and plunder his fortuitous encounters. These people roared one after another. Their terrifying roars distorted time and space. They were some old monsters who had been practicing for many years. They were about to enter the Angel Decay Stage 5 for their last fight. "Let's go and kill Yishiwen. Although he is powerful, we are not juniors like Aoshiba and the others. Let them see that the skills we have accumulated are not useless." The golden-haired middle-aged man roared. The wings behind him spread out directly, blotting out the sky and covering the earth. He chased after Yishiwen's aura. Yishiwen soon felt that there was a large group of people constantly chasing after him, so he simply didn't want to leave. He was very clear about the origin of these people who were chasing after him. Whether it was the masters of the major forces or those old guys, they all had a reason to kill him. He simply stopped and quietly waited for these people to arrive. Sure enough, they didn't disappoint him. In just a dozen breaths' time, they had already caught up to him. Dozens of figures surrounded him. The powerful aura they brought directly turned this space into powder. It was very terrifying. Dozens of tyrannical auras completely enveloped Yishiwen, not giving him the slightest chance to escape. "Yishiwen, I've finally found you. You're very good at hiding. You've been running away for more than a year." The golden-haired middle-aged man couldn't help but sneer. "You can hide? Ha ha, what a joke." Yishiwen sneered and looked coldly at these people. "Do you think you have the chance to find me if I don't stop? Arrogant. You are courting death. I think you have really lost your mind." These masters suddenly became angry. They felt as if Yishiwen was looking down on them. "Yishiwen, your strength is indeed good, but don't think that we are the same as Aoshiba. To be honest, whether it is you or Aoshiba, you are nothing. Your cultivation time is too short. Compared to us, you are just little dolls who have not grown up yet." The golden-haired middle-aged man sneered and said, "You are Wild Lion Ancestor." Yishiwen finally recognized this golden-haired middle-aged man. "My cultivation is shallow, but it is still much better than you wasting your time. Since you know me, you should surrender as soon as possible. I've even killed gods before, so you can't possibly be a match for me. I also cherish your talent, so if you're willing to surrender and be my slave, I'll let you live. Otherwise, you'll die here today, and all of your fortuitous encounters and karmic luck will fall into our hands." Wild Lion Ancestor's face showed a somewhat satisfied smile, as if he was very satisfied that Yishiwen knew him. "You really don't understand the situation. I think you are getting more and more muddle-headed. Well, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Originally, I wanted to lure Aoshiba and Emojingda out, but I didn't expect to attract a group of old guys. I will use you guys to establish my prestige. When the time comes, let's see who dares to bother me. Yi Shiwen said indifferently. What? Wild Lion Ancestor was immediately enraged. This Yi Shiwen had completely ignored them and actually said such words. He was obviously the one who was surrounded and at a disadvantage, but now it seemed that he had completely gained the upper hand. Take my fist first. Yi Shiwen took a step forward, and the sky seemed to completely collapse under his feet. His whole body was like a tank, and when he blasted out a punch, the whole world was madly clanking under the pressure of his fist. He took the lead and attacked Wild Lion Ancestor with lightning speed. You, Wild Lion Ancestor, didn't expect that Yi Shiwen would be so decisive in his attack. His face turned pale with fright, but his reaction wasn't slow. He quickly reacted, clenching his fist. He also rushed towards Yi Shiwen to kill him. Wild Lion Fist. The fist intent turned into a huge lion, and then rushed towards Yi Shiwen's human Dao world. Boom! Wild Lion Ancestor's incomparably huge golden lion was smashed into pieces by Yi Shiwen's world of Dao. There was no way for it to resist, and it was utterly defeated. His fist intent was broken on the spot, and at this time, Yi Shiwen's fist momentum did not decrease, and directly collided with Wild Lion Ancestor's fist. Bang! There was a loud sound like metal colliding, and then only heard Wild Lion Ancestor's scream. His roar shook the heaven and earth, and his whole arm completely turned into blood mist in the sound of ka, and then exploded on the spot. Completely unimaginable, terrifying power rage. Dang, dang, dang! Wild Lion Ancestor retreated again and again, covering his already broken wound, and looked at Yi Shiwen in horror. He never thought that Yi Shiwen would be so strong that he could not even take a punch from Yi Shiwen. How can he be so strong? Chapter 2248. Mad Lion Ancestor couldn't even block one of Yi Shiwen's moves. His face suddenly turned pale. Compared to Yi Shiwen, he was like a child, too weak. Although Mad Lion Ancestor was comparable to a Dao-confirming expert, his strength was tyrannical and had long surpassed the limits of mortals. However, before he could even use his moves, Yi Shiwen had already taken him down a notch. Yi Shiwen completely lifted the heavy as if it was light. Coupled with his Celestial Emperor tool refining technique, he could be said to be like a fish in water in the Weapon Emperor heaven. Compared to him, Mad Lion Ancestor was suppressed too much. Even if it was a master comparable to a Dao-confirming expert, if they entered the Weapon Emperor heaven, they would have to be careful when facing the geniuses in the Weapon Emperor heaven. If a Dao-confirming expert entered, he would immediately suffer from the heavenly Dao's backlash. This was also a big reason why those Dao-confirming experts did not dare to enter. Even if they had various means, the Weapon Emperor heaven was after all not an ordinary world. However, Yi Shiwen could display 100% of his strength here. This was his biggest advantage. Mad Lion Ancestor's crippled arm rapidly regenerated. His eyes flashed fiercely. After the disbelief, he became even more ferocious. He had no way out. If he took another step back, he would be like the Dao-confirming expert, turning into dust. He had no other choice. Crackle! Tyrannical Zhen Yuan constantly erupted from Wild Lion Old Ancestor's body. With his body as the center, it formed an incomparably powerful storm of Zhen Yuan. This was the terrifying power of Zhen Yuan, turning the Zhen Yuan into a storm. One could imagine how terrifying Wild Lion Old Ancestor was. Roar! An incomparably loud roar came. Mad Lion Ancestor's whole body turned into a huge golden lion, shaking the heavens and earth. There was a powerful primordial vicious beast's bloodline in his body. Let's go, this guy is fierce. Let's go together, otherwise we will be killed by him. After witnessing Yi Shiwen's strength, the masters behind Mad Lion Ancestor almost instantly made a decision. They did not want to continue waiting like this. The opportunity was fleeting. These powerful demigods, even comparable to Tao-confirming experts, roared one after another, shaking the heavens and earth. Then, they launched their attacks one after another, even faintly forming a joint force. Although they did not practice the Tao of joint attack, their cooperation was not bad at all. Boom! Countless martial arts torrents split into countless martial arts concepts, and directly bombarded towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen wasn't afraid in the face of the joint attack of dozens of terrifying experts. He leaped into the sky, looked up towards the sky, and let out a long and loud shout. "If you don't repent, I'll send you on your way." Yi Shiwen coldly snorted, and a formidable aura swept out from his body. It was unknown how many times more tyrannical it was. Tianyuan mirror appeared in his hand. After a long time, he once again used Tianyuan mirror. Walala! In the sky, a long river of the yellow springs appeared and spread across the entire void. Even Yi Shiwen didn't dare to immerse himself in the yellow spring river's terrifying power for a long time, let alone these people. They were swept away in an instant. Bang! The power of the yellow springs river gushed out and instantly broke through the joint attack of these experts. It moved forward with unstoppable force, and its momentum did not decrease at all. Pucci! A demigod was attacked on the spot and was completely corroded. He was completely melted away. In just an instant, a demigod was killed on the spot. What is this? Suddenly, those who had their attack broken did not have the mood to continue attacking. They were completely frightened. What a joke! What is this thing? It can actually corrode a demigod in an instant. These demigods had cultivated for many years. Their physical bodies had long been tempered to be extremely strong. It would be fine if they were blown up, but there was actually something that could easily corrode them. Pucci! 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 At the moment when they were hesitating, more than a dozen demigods couldn't dodge in time and were directly melted by the Yellow Springs River that rushed out. That's the Yellow Springs. How is it possible? Such powerful Yellow Springs water can only appear in the Divine Tribulation. Although I haven't crossed the Divine Tribulation, I once saw an extremely powerful expert being corroded to death by the Yellow Springs water when he was crossing the Divine Tribulation. An old man who was comparable to a Tao-confirming expert said in horror. He was almost scared to death. The Yellow Springs water was naturally divided into many levels. The Yellow Springs water that emerged during the Divine Tribulation was naturally very terrifying. Even a demigod who was about to enter the god realm could be directly melted away. He had only seen such a scene once in his life. However, he was scared out of his wits after seeing it. Since then, he didn't have the courage to trigger the Divine Tribulation. Even if his current combat power was comparable to a Tao-confirming expert, he was still not a Tao-confirming expert. When faced with that kind of terrifying Yellow Springs water, he would still be completely corroded. Yes, this is the Yellow Springs water that was triggered when crossing the Divine Tribulation. I just kept it. You people want to cross the Divine Tribulation with this kind of strength? Don't even think about it. In this life, you will only be sitting and waiting for death. Yi Shiwen was merciless. Under his control, the Yellow Springs water had a tendency to spread to the heavens. The Yellow Springs was a kind of terrifying holy water that was condensed from the corpse water that flowed out of the dead. It represented boundless death. It was also a legendary eternal holy river that flowed in the undead world. It had existed since ancient times. For the living, this was a kind of eternal and terrifying power. It swept through all directions. It was simply invincible. Even a Tao-confirming expert would feel afraid when looking at it. What? This is really the Yellow Springs water. Everyone suddenly panicked. Originally, everyone just said it. Everyone didn't quite believe it. However, they were almost scared to death after Yi Shiwen verified it. The Yellow Springs water. Although they hadn't really seen this thing, they had heard of it. At least half of the people who failed to cross the divine tribulation died on the Yellow Springs water. How could they not know about such a fierce and illustrious water? However, they were completely scared because they knew about it. Almost everyone who dared to trigger the divine tribulation was an outstanding expert at the peak of the demigod realm. Not even 1 in 100 people would dare to trigger the divine tribulation. If they didn't trigger the divine tribulation, they might be able to live for a few more years and make some preparations. However, once the divine tribulation was triggered, most of them would die immediately. What was even more abnormal was how Yi Shiwen subdued such a terrifying evil water. How could it be so terrifying? Wherever the Yellow Springs water passed, it simply swept away everything. Even a Tao-confirming expert wouldn't dare to stay on the Yellow Springs water for even a moment. Otherwise, they would be directly melted. Roar. You want to kill me? Wild Lion Ancestor roared. A huge wall appeared in front of him, completely blocking the Yellow Springs water. The rest of the people were protected. At this time, the others quickly began to maintain this huge energy wall. At this time, they didn't think about how to kill Yi Shiwen. It was too unrealistic. It was best to protect themselves. They fought and retreated, wanting to escape. You want to escape? Yi Shiwen's eyes flashed with a touch of anger. He commanded Tianyuan Mirror to collect the Yellow Springs water. This was a non-renewable resource. It couldn't be wasted. Then, streaks of blood-red light swept down. Bang! 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 Under the bombardment of Tianyuan Mirror, the energy wall they maintained was also on the verge of collapse. Huge cracks constantly appeared on it. What kind of monster is he? How can he be so strong? Can't the strength of a group of us be better than him? Fight, don't break, otherwise we will definitely die. These top experts kept roaring, but it was useless. Under Yi Shiwen's offensive, they were too far behind. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow if they were to face Yi Shiwen alone. They wouldn't be a match for him at all. Heavenly thunder, summon! Yi Shiwen shouted loudly. From Tianyuan Mirror, a law lightning directly struck down on the spot. Rumble! The energy wall that they had desperately tried to maintain instantly collapsed. In the face of this terrifying law lightning, all resistance was futile. It was a joke. This is the lightning in God's retribution. No, even the lightning in God's retribution is not so terrifying. What kind of monster is he? Someone exclaimed. They were already in complete despair. Yi Shiwen's methods were endless, as if there would never be an end. In the face of all this, everything was too ridiculous. Overturning the sky seal. A huge seal fell down, directly smashing several peak demigod masters who couldn't dodge in time into meat sauce. They were completely not Yi Shiwen's opponent. This was a completely different level of strength. They were both at the peak of myth, but the difference between them was like a giant and an ant. Yi Shiwen, don't be too arrogant. An old fellow who was comparable to a Tao-confirming expert pounced over, bringing with him a world-shaking might. This meant that his strength was not weak. Whoosh! A long river of swordsmanship directly swept down. The sky-splitting sword burst out sharp sword light, cold like moonlight, sharp and cutting everything. Puff! The old guy was cut in half by the sky-splitting sword on the spot, and his primordial spirit was destroyed. Yi Shiwen took a step forward and rushed into the crowd. He launched a massacre and swept away everyone. No one was a match for him, especially when he was holding the broken space sword in his hand. He had several divine tools on his body, and using them to deal with these demigods was simply ridiculous, as if an adult was bullying a child. Even the Mad Lion Ancestor, who was the strongest and almost touched the combat power of the middle immortal level, could not resist Yi Shiwen's sword. In this battle, the whole team was annihilated. The Equipment Emperor Heaven was shocked. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.